I just thought I had to shout that out there.
We got a bunch of Davids from Newcastle, England. Here we go. So exciting. Okay, so let's officially get started. My name is Maxine Schnapp. I am the Career Development Manager here at CG Spectrum College, and this is our open day. We are bringing the industry to you, and I have my very special co-host here, David Cunningham. Hey, David, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm excited to be here. I can't wait to see everybody's presentations and what they've got to say.
Yeah, there's so much exciting stuff coming. I can't wait for you to meet all of the mentors and department heads that are going to talk to you today. So welcome, enjoy the ride, and I hope you enjoy what CG Spectrum has to offer. First, we're going to start with a little student showcase. We just cut this together. This is our showcase from last year, 2021. So we are pretty excited to show you some recent student work so you can see, kind of what to expect with our students and the type of stuff that they have been working on. So let's get started, and here we go.
And I respect the guy who knits. It's pretty cute.
It helps me focus.
That's not just one people, right? Yeah, just two people. Just two people on the one relationship.
Well,
haunted house party. She's so amusing.
Oh, now I have to take nasty medicine. I make up my mind not to take it, and then I don't.
I wanted Eddie to play the cello, but he wanted to play the beatbox instead.
Oh my God, that was so exciting.
Some of them are so impressive.
I know, right? And that is our latest from 2021. Yeah, we have a lot of amazing students who have been so hard on their portfolios, and this is just a glimpse of what you could expect if you become one of our students.
Yeah, it's really refreshing to see some of the stuff I don't see at work, like the 2D illustration and the animation and all that sort of stuff. It's so cool.
Yeah, exactly. So, and similar to me, my background is in visual effects. So I've introduced myself already, but I'm going to do it again. My name is Maxine Schnapf. I am one of the hosts today, and I am also CG Spectrum's Career Development Manager. So what that means is I help students stand out and break into the film or games industry. But my background is primarily in visual effects. So I worked for some smaller commercial studios when I first got my start into the industry, and then eventually transitioned into being a production coordinator at a film studio and slowly worked my way up to visual effects producer, resource manager, and now I am here at CG Spectrum and trying to give students sort of an insider's look into what you actually need to do to prepare for this industry. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we offer and how we help students with their careers, but that's some of my background. I've worked on some pretty cool stuff. A lot of Canadian content. I'm from Toronto, Canada, but I've also worked on some big blockbuster movies like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which you can see in the background of this beautiful slide. I've also worked on a couple of Star Wars movies. What else have I worked on? Oh my God. Spider-Man, one of the Spider-Mans, Planet of the Apes. There's a lot. There's quite a few Marvel movies in there because I worked on those a lot.
Some big titles.
When I worked at Mr. X, we were working on Raised by Wolves, and me and David actually used to work together at Mr. X, which is now known as MPC. And so some of our credits might even match up.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, David?
So I'm David Cunningham, and I am currently a lead modeler at DNEG. And I'm also a career coach at DNEG, as well as being a mentor for 3D modeling here at CG Spectrum. And I'll go a bit more into detail about what being a mentor is here very, very shortly. But yes, like Maxine said, we've worked together. I think, did we work on, was it Snowpiercer together? Maybe?
Yeah, I can't remember. Snowpiercer, like a couple of your train projects. He's modeled a couple of trains in the past.
Yeah. and I've worked on, as you can tell, Enola Holmes, Moonfall, How Do They Fall, Snowpiercer, Alien is Cursed. The list is quite actually long for only 3 years in visual effects. Because I moved from the UK into Canada 3 years ago from moving from an engineering background but still working in 3D. So all these skills, also transferable.
Yeah. And you know what, that's pretty similar to a lot of our students here at CG Spectrum. A lot of them come from different backgrounds or from other careers. So that's really, really common here at CG Spectrum. We have some people who are doing career switches. So if that sounds like you, if you are someone who's not fresh out of high school, although we love those people too, please come to us. But if you're watching, trying to figure out whether you finally want to follow your passion, we can definitely help you with that. Oh, we have some person, someone just wrote in the chat. David's a career switcher here. Oh, we had quite a few people.
Wow, there's Andrew, a lot, yeah.
Kevin, Kim, Lewis. Yeah, see, so we have a lot of people here wondering, is this going to be worth it? Can I change my life like this far in after going through a whole different career path maybe, or maybe you just did something else. I've met some students who took 10 years to travel the world and work as like servers all over the world in different countries. That's cool too. Dream chasers.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these skills you learn in other jobs are more transferable than you think as well.
Yes, they totally are.
If you've ever dealt with a client.
Yeah, or like a customer, even like an angry like Starbucks customer, you've dealt with a lot, and those types of skills will really help you for the future. And these are things that I talk about a lot to the students when I coach them and help them figure out what to do with their careers. We have some high school graduates in the house too. That's fine. It's okay if you don't have any career behind you. You can still join us.
It's just the first step on your journey. That's
exactly. Okay, so today we have, like I said, jam-packed sort of schedule. So we're going to talk a little bit about who we are as a school, what we teach. We're going to also hear from some of our department heads and mentors. We're also going to go over the VFX pipeline in relation to our new Dune-inspired commercial that we just released. Very exciting. If you haven't checked it out already, we're going to show it again today. And we'll also do a little behind the scenes with the creators. You'll also hear from our admissions team. We also have some admissions people answering questions. So if you do ask some admissions related questions, like when can I sign up? How much is it going to cost? All that sort of stuff. You can ask them in the Q&A section of the Zoom screen. I'll also be talking about what makes CG Spectrum unique, our community. We're talking about careers and how I help people. And we'll also hear from our TAs, our technical assistants, and our alumni. So we have a couple of people who are going to talk a little bit about what it's actually like being a student. So you're going to hear from the students themselves. This is pretty cool. So let's get started with who we are.
Who are we? Well, we're a school full of over 2,000 alumni now, which is great. And that's growing every day. And people just can't get enough of these courses, it seems. We've got 170 game and film mentors, and they each have their own specialist area of where you can learn, which is fantastic if you didn't know what you wanted, or if you want something really specialist, we can find the right person that will guide you in your career, which is fantastic. And with being in 90 countries as well, that's huge, because being all over the globe, we can have times that fit you. We can work around your busy schedule, and that's just so perfect for when you have a busy life, as most of us do now. And with 80% job success rate, which is massive, because I think that's way higher than what my university was or anything like that. And I think that is down to having specialized mentors that can tell you and prepare you, and people like Maxine who can prepare you for the industry and can say, this is what they want, this is what they're expecting, and we can give that to you. And I just think that's amazing. Yeah. And the certificates too, this is actually huge, because these aren't just handed out to anybody. Things like the Unreal certificates and the Houdini certificates make sure that we are working to the highest level, and we are teaching and providing students with the latest up-to-date information that things like Unreal Engine can provide. So when students go into industry, they can just hit the ground running, and they might actually be better off than some of I hate to say it, the oldies who might be stuck in their way with the old ways of doing things. You can jump in with these new technologies, and things like Houdini is just so interesting and cool to learn. I'd love to get my hands on that more. But yeah, we work at a very, very high level, high standard.
And also some of our graduates have been hired at some top studios around the world, like Blizzard Entertainment, ILM, Luma Pictures, DreamWorks, EA, Ubisoft, Sony Pictures Animations, MPC. I've heard of some recent alumni getting hired at MPC recently, which is amazing. 343 Industries, Epic Games, the list goes on. There are so many that also aren't mentioned, a lot of smaller studios that people often get hired at. So yeah, with that 80% job success rate, we're looking at quite a few of our grads working already all over the world.
Yeah, and I actually had the honor of working with one of your graduates as well when I was at Mr. X. So that was pretty crazy. Because that was before I was here. So I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're even seeing that like some of our mentors, like David, are actually working with some of our grads, which is pretty cool. And some of the mentors have even helped students get jobs if they really see a lot of promise in someone. So you never know. Some of our mentors work freelance or they have their own companies, which is pretty cool. So you could always work with a mentor in the future as well.
Totally.
So here's some of the benefits of studying at CG Spectrum. So we do job-focused career training and mentorship. So what that means is that we are really trying to train you for specific positions, and our courses are based around industry feedback and the skills you will actually need on the job. So that still does include a lot of theory behind certain concepts, but we're really trying to train you for specific jobs. We also offer flexible class scheduling and payment plans, live weekly Q&A calls with your mentor, and we also do recorded video critiques for some extra feedback throughout the week. You'll also have access to industry insights and networking opportunities. So we have this amazing community, which you're going to hear a little bit more about later in the presentation. We're all on Slack. It's a private community that has over 2,000 members now with so you're basically in a private community, not just with other students in your class or like admin people like me who work at the school, but also mentors. All of these amazing mentors who work for our school, who are at some of those big studios, you have access to network with them as well within Slack. It's also 100% online. So there is no physical place you have to go to. You can study from anywhere in the world. And this is pretty hands-on education. It's not about doing one assignment and handing it in and forgetting about it. Our mentors actually open up your project files. So if you're working in Maya, like David does, or in Houdini or Photoshop, you will send your file to your mentor. They open it and they actually help you figure stuff out and problem solve and troubleshoot. It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's an inspiring and supportive community. So this is talking a little bit more about our Slack community again and how people help each other. We have mentors, we have TAs and other people who you can ask questions to, throughout the week. So it's not just you and your mentor, but there are other people that you can chat with, which is pretty cool. And our group classes are tiny. They are 4 students max. So even if you pick a group option, you're still getting a pretty personalized experience. But for some of you, especially those who do have full-time jobs or maybe some other responsibilities that make timing difficult, you can always choose the private one-on-one option for your class. And that is just you with one mentor for as long as the course is. Our courses range anywhere from about 3 months to 9 months or longer. And we also have some advanced courses. So it could be just you and this amazing person like David in the industry helping you along the way. I'm really not skimping on the compliments today.
No.
Yeah. So our mentors.
Yeah, mentor. I mean, you can just thank you. So you can just see, like at a first glance, just from the pictures, how sort of diverse and eclectic the mix of skills that our mentors have. You can see 2D animation, you can see game design, game development, we've got modeling, concept art, we've got everything you can sort of possibly imagine in this sort of industry of 2D and 3D. Direct access to industry experts who have worked at major studios on feature films and AAA games. And I think the direct access is kind of a key word there, because you can, hit me up and say, hey, David, I need to know this, or can you help me with this, or what do you think about this? And I will give you sort of my professional opinion. So will all of the other mentors, because that's, what we're here for. And we will give you it based on what we do at work as well, so it's coming straight from the industry, and that's the sort of the level that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. After enrolling, you're matched with an industry professional, like I said, like myself. Your mentors will support you with live weekly calls, which are great. And as Maxine said, sometimes it can be one-on-one, or sometimes they can be in a group of 4. I like to have my group of 4 because you get a bit of banter and you can see what people are working on. And also you can see if one person's done something one way and another person's done something the other way, and you achieve the same result. you can talk about workflows and how they did that, and it gets the conversation going, which obviously makes it way more interesting to, you know, learn more techniques. And yeah, our mentors are based all over the world, covering most time zones. And I said at the start of this, I have someone in Australia and I have someone in America. So it's, you know, I'm teaching someone in the morning and teaching someone when they go to bed at the same time. So it's really, we'll have something that will, you know, fit around your schedule.
Yeah, and it's so fun meeting people from all over the world. Like I've now talked, because I've been here for just about 2 years now. I think I might be hitting my like 2-year mark exactly any day now, or maybe it just passed. But
oh, wow,
it's so exciting. Yeah, hi. But yeah, it's so exciting meeting our students. Like I've met people from so many different countries, you know, places that I've never been to, and it's so exciting to like get their perspective and try to help them problem solve you know, what to do with their careers. So next, let's get into what we teach. We have a ton of programs, and we even have some new programs. So we have in our animation courses, we have 2D and 3D animation. We teach 3D modeling based in Maya. We also have digital painting course, concept art, and illustration. We have a game development course, or sorry, multiple game development courses. We have game design and game programming, and also a foundations for game art. So it's kind of like a good introduction to learn a little bit of everything, along with a very special ISTQB certification course that we just launched, which you will hear a little bit more about shortly. We have our visual effects courses, so where you can learn Houdini, Nuke compositing, and also a similar foundations course if you want to learn a little bit of everything first and kind of wrap your head around it. And our newest selection of courses are our virtual production courses. So we have an introduction to real-time 3D and virtual production. We have the full real-time 3D and virtual production course, which is an additional 9 months on top of that. We've just started to get some people graduating from that course, which is really exciting. We just launched it last September, so just under a year ago. And some of our grads are already getting job offers. Some of them started getting offers before they even finished the program. So the skills we're teaching in this virtual production course are really, really good. You're going to hear a little bit more about it later. And we also have an Unreal Connectors virtual production. It's kind of a shorter course for people who are maybe professionals in the industry, people who have some industry experience, but they're looking for a more intensive sort of boot camp course. We have that too. Super exciting. Also some job opportunities. You can check out our career pathways page at cgspectrum.com/career pathways for more information about some of these different fields like 3D modeling or digital painting or virtual production, and what types of actual job titles you might be able to get depending on the course you take or the skills that you have. So you can learn a little bit more about all of these amazing opportunities if you check out that website below, cgspectrum.com/career-pathways. And now we're going to start getting into some of our mentors and department heads. We have Scott Claus here. He is the manager of animation here at CG Spectrum, and he has worked on some incredible movies. Scott, let us know where you're from and tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome.
Where they didn't know about animation or motion graphics, and that was something I was very interested in. And I think that my trajectory, if you want to call it that, is that I proved that if you want something badly enough, if you go out and get the training, you can actually do it. And that's why you're here, because you have an interest in this stuff and you've already taken the first step. And I think that that's one of the main things you're going to need, that and the skills. And so I ended up getting into 2D animation first because I loved it. You can see I worked on Pocahontas, a few films for Disney, other animation studios. I jumped over to DreamWorks and started working on their 2D films, worked on all of them. None of them were hits, but I'm glad to see they're popular now. Things like Road to El Dorado and Spirit and Prince of Egypt. And then I noticed that computers were becoming a big thing. Films like Toy Story and even Shrek, which I didn't work on, were becoming more and more popular. And I decided I was interested in that as well. Again, living proof that if you're interested in something and you have the motivation and the drive, you can learn about it. And so I learned CG animation, did character animation at DreamWorks for a while, and then began to realize that I really liked doing gritty stuff like monsters and creatures. And I ended up getting into that next. So I worked on several films in that genre, including The Golden Compass. I worked on the second Hulk film, not the first one, if you remember that one from the 2000s, and a couple of monster movies, Cabin in the Woods, and finished off with Life of Pi. And around that time, I began to realize what I was really enjoying was paying it forward and teaching people what I know that I got from the people that I worked with. Animation is not really something you get from a book. It's not something you just sit and learn. You can't even really learn it from YouTube videos. You need to have a mentor. You need to have somebody who can help you and tell you what you need to do to get into the next step. And so I decided to make that my mission. And I went and got my master's right after Life of Pi so that I could become a full-time instructor. And that's what I've been doing with CG Spectrum. Actually, I've moved on now. I'm the manager of 2D and 3D animation at CG Spectrum. So you'll probably hear from me if that's something you're interested in and you want to come to the school. But that's basically my career in a nutshell. And if you come to CG Spectrum, I'm happy to answer questions at any time and go on and on about my career. But that's basically my career in animation and what led to me being the manager. And so I'm just going to talk about the 2D courses right now, but what you'll find is that we take people from the very beginning. We take them from, even if you don't know how to draw, but if you have the passion and the interest, we will begin right at the beginning with learning to draw a little bit, doing bouncing ball, doing simple things. We use Toon Boom, and you will have access to Toon Boom as long as you're in the course. And then we have two courses, one that focuses on more drawing, which is doing character things, interaction, dialogue. And then the other one that's more cutout style. So if you've seen a lot of TV animation, you've probably seen that, even if you didn't know that's what it was, but rig-based animation. That's our advanced course. So you can see the amount of time it takes. We go pretty quickly. A lot of it depends on how passionate you are, as with everything. But we do have two distinct courses that generate a lot of artistic fascinating. There are a lot of fascinating artwork, as you can see in both in the showcase reel and then in some of the images that are on the screen right now. And so if you are creative and if you are interested in pursuing motion graphics using drawing and character skills that are 2D, you've come to the right place. Not a lot of schools offer this, and we do. And we're really excited about what's coming out of the school. So anyway, that's kind of a brief overview of the courses, and I look forward to seeing you if you're interested in this. I can't wait to see what you have to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Scott.
Sure.
That was great to hear.
I know, and his background is so amazing. Students are really getting to learn.
Fantastic stories. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And that's the cool thing. It's these mentors are not just teaching you how to use a program or troubleshooting, but you get to hear some of these stories about what it was actually like working in the industry, or what was it like working on this project. And it's really good to think about some questions for these people, if you want to be a student. So it's not just about, where do I click here? I mean, obviously that stuff helps too, but some of those personal questions I think are a really nice way to sort of spend your time here and really get the full picture and all of the resources that we offer. Speaking of someone who has an amazing story to tell and some incredible credits, we have Mark Polyblank. Mark, where are you?
I'm right here.
Hi.
Hey,
tell us a little bit about yourself and
3D
animation.
Yeah, so my name is Mark Polyblank, and like Maxine, I'm a recovering Canadian. I don't know what that means. So that was good. I was waiting for the I started animating a long time ago, and I've had a wonderful time with it. I started out at a studio in Vancouver, Canada, on the first Garfield movie. It was called Rainmaker at the time. I think it's now Method. I worked up to become a animation supervisor there, and then I went to some other studios before going out to Weta Digital in New Zealand, which was wonderful. Came back to Vancouver. I worked at Sony for a while, and And I now started a company. It's a virtual production company and a VR company, and we partner with Epic Games. And I actually hire students. I just hired one former student and one student that's currently still a student, and who said, well, I still want to keep up my studies. Great, but you did it. You're hired. But anyhow, back in 2012, my very, very good friend Nick Frieden, friends Nick Frieden and Jeff Pepper, invited me on to teach here at CG Spectrum, and it's been a great ride. What was interesting, what students find interesting with my story is that I started late. I'm one of those career change people. So I was already in my 30s. I had an infant daughter and one on the way, and I decided to go back to school, and it was freaking terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. I find that learning, changing career paths is the hardest job I've ever had, because you don't know how it's gonna work out, and it's very, very difficult to learn this stuff, because it's hard to keep your motivation up, because when you first start something new, obviously the only feedback you're getting from your like colossal efforts is that you stink at something that you desperately want to get good at. So what I learned going through all this journey that I've been on is that the number one sort of indicator for success at learning anything is the person's enthusiasm for the coursework, which is difficult. But with that in mind, that's how we all here at CG Spectrum, and myself specifically, tries to more than teach you how to animate. I'm peddling enthusiasm, I like to call it. I'm a peddler of enthusiasm, because all I can do is show you how to do it, but you have to actually keep your hands on your tools and do it. So that's kind of that's my racket. The courses, here's the thing with animation is it's all kind of the same stuff. It all starts at the fundamentals. It's exactly what Scott was saying. It's the fundamentals that were developed by the old Disney crew back in the 1930s. It's we start with all of the principles of animation, and it's just practice, practice, practice. We move into more body mechanics stuff, getting the character to roll, flip, some parkour stuff. Then we move into some acting and and some creature work. We try to cover as much as we can. The wonderful thing about this is that with small class sizes is certain students want to kind of like go off the what would you say, off the pathway a little bit and try something different over here. And I tend to like to accommodate that, because really all it comes down to is, if you're doing something you want to do, you're practicing your animation. The only wrong thing to do is nothing. And so if you want to try something a little bit different, or sort of mix and match, or take a bit of a different pathway, great, because it's practice, 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 practice. The people who do this the most do it the best. That's it. There's no like genetic disposition. There's no like born with talent nonsense. I was terrible at this for an embarrassingly long time. And I grew up in Red Deer on a farm, and I worked on Avatar. So, hey, look, you can do this sort of thing. I'm looking forward to seeing anybody who wants to come and join me. Like I said, I've been doing this since 2012. I love it. And we'll do great things together. Back to you, Maxine.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, if Mark can do it, you can do it.
Wait, what?
And also, listen, I'm not just a recovering Canadian. I still live here. Okay. I still live here. Some of us are stuck here. Okay. No, I love it here in Canada. Yeah, David's here by choice. There we go.
Can I just say I'm going to steal enthusiasm peddler. I love that. I'm going to use that.
It's really good. Mark actually did like a whole talk about that. I'll send it to you later, David. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm like, he does this whole talk about that, and it's so good. If you're someone who's like trying something new or getting into a new thing, the enthusiasm is the biggest part, like actually putting in the time. Eventually you will get better. And I talk about this with a lot of students, is you're not really going to get worse at something, as long as you're spending the time every day, every week, practicing stuff, you will get better. So I believe, I'm not sure if Brandon is, oh no, he is here. Oh my God, Brandon.
I
was just about to skip you. There we go. We got Brandon here. He is the department head of digital illustration. Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this.
Yeah, so I've always been interested in drawing. I was always the best artist in my class in elementary school, and so I thought I had a talent for it. But I mean, just to speak to what Mark said, it was because I had a passion for it and that I put time into it that I was better than other people. So I kept going with that throughout my grade school career, I guess if you call it that. And I wanted to get into doing this for a living. I thought I wanted to be an animator, but then I realized I don't want to draw the same picture again and again and again. I found out about concept art, and it was actually Stan Winston and a lot of the concept art that came out of ILM back in the day that really got me into it. And so I went through fine arts program, which really didn't give me what I needed to do what I wanted to do in concept art. But it gave me a good basis to start. There weren't a lot of technical schools back then. I'm older than you might think. And so I got my foot in the door at a video game studio. I drew a lot in front of the team, and I was a QA tester, which is definitely not what I wanted to do. It's a fine career, but it's not what I wanted to do. But I got my foot in the door, and I got noticed, and eventually I got accepted to be a junior concept artist, and I kind of learned on the job from there. If I had a CG Spectrum back in the day, then I would have definitely gone to a CG Spectrum type school. So anyway, yeah. So I worked in video games for a majority of my, sorry, I'm skipping around the slides there. Majority of my career, I have done a couple things for TV and film, but it's been like 99% video game stuff. So I built the program at CG Spectrum for concept art originally about 7 years ago now. It's been a while. And we've been growing ever since. I think we are the most popular program at the school. Modeling's really close. It's probably because everybody's drawn in their life and they fancy themselves an artist, which is a natural transition if you do it a lot. So we can move to the next slide there. So yeah, what we have on offer in the concept art and illustration or DigiPaint courses, we start with, for most people, they need to work on their foundations. So, and as some of the other heads of department and mentors have said, it is a lot of you putting your nose to the grindstone and working hard on these things, practicing, getting better at these things. So our intro course does help people that are maybe less practiced and less experienced with producing artwork, either concept style artwork or illustration. So we can walk you through some of the fundamentals there. We get into more intermediate ideas as we progress through that first intro term. At that end of that program, you can opt to go into advanced illustration or advanced concept art. So they are different things, and going through these courses does teach you the difference between them. One is more for finished artwork. Our illustration program would be something more for the people that want to do kind of illustrations, splash art, stuff like you'd see, say, in League of Legends, and things like book covers, Magic, The Gathering, card art, that kind of thing. Whereas our advanced concept, a lot of the concept art that you'll do, unfortunately, doesn't see the light of day, but you get to have a huge influence on how things look in a game or in a film or TV program. So yeah, you travel in that direction. We do have at the end of both of those advanced programs portfolio terms where your mentor supports you in the development of your portfolio. So that would be helping you kind of build the right portfolio, good strategies behind continuing to build your portfolio in perpetuity, as you have to do as a commercial artist, and working on the things that are you're maybe a little bit still rough at, so that you can have the best chance when applying for jobs. So yeah, it's a very popular course, and we have Penny in here, who's one of our current students, but also a TA and TA wrangler, and so she's an example of a really awesome student that has grown a lot in the program, and with those TAs, they help you, right? And you'll get to learn a little bit about that later. They help you outside of what your mentor will provide with anything that maybe you feel like I just struggle with perspective or something like that. They can hop into a chat with you and look at what you're doing and help you with that. So we also have open sessions as well with some of our mentors where you can submit your work. So there's lots of support for you to get better at these things as you travel through whichever course you pick. But and by the end, we've seen lots of students that really do put the effort in, succeed and get better. It's really cool. I'm not naturally a teacher. I never thought, if you knew me from before, you would be like, Brandon's teaching and mentoring, you wouldn't think that of me. But it is, as Scott said, something that, giving back to people that care about what you care about is actually really, it's fun and it's fulfilling. So we hire mentors that have of like mind, and so we have a lot of people that can help you here at CG Spectrum. Did I forget anything, Maxine?
I don't think so. I think you covered it. And honestly, yeah. I want to say I could bet that probably most of our mentors, or at least I can speak for myself, also didn't think that they would ever work for a school. I think a lot of people that get into some of these industries, like, we didn't do well at some of those other traditional courses, or we didn't do well at some of those traditional schools. And it's so fun to see some of these people shine in a different type of environment, and like a different learning environment that's more hands-on, that's more, we have support, we have a lot of resources, but then it's also very independent. So, we don't like to chase people for things. We don't even mark people. We really like to let the students grow with themselves. So you have to have that passion. You have to be putting the time in. We'll help you along the way. But yeah, I definitely hated school growing up. And now I work for a school. It's pretty fun, but I like to kind of put that in mind of what didn't work well for me and how can I try to change that for the students now. With that being said, I would like to introduce Scott Bayless. He is the department head of game development, which combines game design and game programming. Scott, let us know a little bit about yourself and tell us about your background in the industry.
Thanks, Maxine. I was kind of chuckling while Mark was talking about his career change, because I think I'm now on career change number 4. I started out, actually in college, I was an art and theater major. So what did I decide to do? I decided to get involved in computers, and I spent almost 20 years as a programmer, first in engineering and then in games. And then I moved from programming into producing and creative and game design. And that was a really exciting transition for me, because up to the point of making that transition, I was mostly focused on just making things work. And suddenly I found myself in a position of actually being able to pursue a passion I had for taking ideas and turning them into something real, which is kind of at the heart of game design. And then about 10 years later, I moved into the executive world and ran a studio for Microsoft. That actually ultimately led to my presence here at the school, because a very talented designer that I worked with at Microsoft reached out to me a few years ago and suggested that might be a good idea for me to get introduced to CG Spectrum. And that actually led to my 4th career. After about 10 years as an executive at Microsoft and Electronic Arts and at Capcom, where I ran all of Western development for Capcom, I thought I was going to retire. And then Troy reached out and said, you might want to think about mentoring. And boy, was he right. As other folks have said here, it's an immensely fulfilling experience for us. It's a chance to give back in ways that just never really get old. So I'm really excited to be here talking to you guys about this, and I'm very excited to answer any questions that you guys might have about game development. We're introducing a new course to the school, and it's for a fairly specific reason. So let me talk about the course first. ISTQB, for those of you who don't know, stands for International Standards. Actually, I'm blanking now. It's International Standards, the International Software Testing Quality Board. So I finally got it out. What they do is they set the standard for software testing worldwide, and they offer certifications which ensure a level of consistency in the way software testing gets done. So why does that matter to games? Well, as it turns out, games are actually really complex creatures when it comes to software. And what I've learned over the years is that some of the best creatives I've ever worked with, both in game design and in game production and even game programming, actually came out of QA. Well, why would that be? It's because if you spend time in QA, you know almost better than anybody else the difference between a game that's good and a game that's not so good. And it really makes a difference. It has a huge impact on how you think about games. And instead of just thinking of it as a player or as a consumer, you think about it in a much more analytical way. And that really helps you understand how to make a game. So we're offering 3 courses. The first one is a foundations course, which actually gets you 2 certifications. One of those is what they call a CTFL, which is a certified tester foundation level. This is essentially the basics in software testing. And then we're also offering a separate certification in Agile, which has a lot to do with applying the principles of software testing into Agile software development. And in games, that's becoming a really common pattern. Agile development is really effective for game development, something that I could spend lots of time talking about, but I won't do it here. And then the second course that we're offering is an advanced level tester course. This is an extension of that CTFL certification. And again, it leads to a certification. So you actually take a test at the end of the course and become a certified tester. And then the test manager course is for those folks who really want to get deep into understanding how software QA actually works and how to manage groups of people who are doing software testing. And we have a test manager certification that we make available as well. So these are all going to go live in September, and I'm very excited to see how people respond to it. I think it opens up some great opportunities for people in the school, no matter what discipline they work in, to find their way into games in a way that will teach them an enormous amount about how games actually get made and the difference between a good game and a great game. So that's the overview.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
And lovely hearing about your background. It's been so fun working with Scott because I'm, like I said before, I have more of a visual effects background. And so anytime I have a games question, I'm like, I know exactly who to go to. And you can have that ability too. If you have a question about something specific to the industry, if you're one of our students, you would have access to our Slack community. I think we saw one of the questions in the chat was whether we have a Discord channel. We do have a Discord channel, but our main community is all housed within Slack, which is very similar to Discord if you haven't used it. Next up, we have Troy Dunaway. Where are you, Troy? He is the department head of game design. Hey, Troy, let us know a little bit about yourself and why you came to CG Spectrum.
Hi, Maxine. So, thanks. Yeah, I mean, kind of like Mark was and Scott were saying, you know, it's funny how many of us have gone through our career changes. And this is my 3rd career kind of now in doing game development. And I actually started doing stuff in rocket science. And I was working at NASA for a very short period of time designing spaceships. And I was doing very early 3D graphics programming, stuff like that. And and one day a friend of mine introduced me to James Cameron, and I got a chance to go work on a movie called Terminator 2, and worked on True Lies and did some other stuff with Jim for many years, and then stayed in visual effects for about 5 years, back in the dark ages of visual effects. But I realized I really wanted to do something that was more creative. And I've always been somebody that's a jack of all trades, and somebody that's artistic and engineer, and I like to write and I like to draw, and I do kind of everything, in between. And so I got into games. I didn't even know if I would be good at games, but here I am 30 years later. And so I kind of started my career actually as an art director. My first job was actually as an art director in games. And then within 2 weeks, they saw a sci-fi novel I was writing. They said, "Oh, you should write the story for the game." And a few weeks later, they was like, "You should design the game." And I was like, "What's a game designer?" Because nobody really knew back then. There wasn't a job title even of game designer. And so I, became a game designer, and just was been very fortunate to have some great mentors and great people to teach me, and, just self-taught and learned, and ultimately ended up at Microsoft with Scott, and ended up at EA and Ubisoft and many, big and small studios over the last 30 years. I've worked on probably about 100 and so games. And so it's been a great progress to kind of just see how the industry has changed, how it's shifted. But I went from kind of game design into really management, and spent a lot of my time the last 10 years really as a more executive management type role. And but now I'm have my own studio, and I'm kind of back to the roots of trying to design games and actually be more hands-on versus just managing and running studios, and really just enjoying the art and craft again. And then I joined CG Spectrum and created the game design program about 3 or 4 years ago now. And it's just been a great journey there. So let me tell you why this is different. So as a game design program, what's hard is you do kind of have to be a bit of a jack of all trades. You have to be somebody that can do a little bit of everything. And it's really hard, which means there's a tremendous amount of knowledge you have to know. And it doesn't mean you have to be an expert at, programming, game design, and art all at once, but you have to have a little bit of kind of knowledge of everything. And so this program was really developed by me out of frustration of looking at all these other programs, looking at all these people that were graduating from other schools. And I couldn't hire any of them. None of them were very good. They all focused, these other schools were all focusing on the wrong things. They weren't teaching the fundamentals. They weren't really teaching you how to make a game and how to make it fun, right? And so what we were really focused here on is that foundational theory about how do you really take this thing and really make it fun and exciting to play. And it's not just about the tools. Yes, we teach you Unreal, and we teach you how to, write a game design document, and do documentation, and do all these things that are kind of that day-to-day skill that you would need to have a job as a game designer. But we're really focused on how do you put it together and actually come up with an idea and take that idea all the way to finish. But you have to do it as a team, right? A game designer doesn't work, by themselves. They don't just sit there and work, in isolation, unless you're at a little indie studio or something like that. And so this program has really been designed for AAA game development. If you want to go get a job at EA, at Ubisoft, or one of the big studios, this is the job program or the school for you, because we're really focused on how do you, as part of a team, build a great game, and not just be, I want to do everything myself, right? And so, but that's a big difference that you have to be careful about when you're looking at how to build a game. So the intro term was really about that fundamentals of how do I get started? How do I learn how to come up with an idea and take that idea, to at least a paper concept. And then as you get into the game design course, we take you through a couple terms of much more hands-on. This is a really hard course, and I really stress this. Even 20 hours a week, it's pretty tough. It's not designed to be easy, but if you can't hack this course, you're not going to hack production, right? So you've got to really have the drive, have the passion, have the energy to really get in here and do well and succeed if you want to go get a job, right? And so I really encourage you to not come into this course and think you can do this in 5 hours a week or something like that. So it really is hard. But at 20 hours a week, you're going to go in there and you're going to learn a lot, both about more theory and what makes things fun. How do I make running and jumping fun? How do I make shooting fun? How do I make, exploring a world really fun? There's so much to know and so much to learn, and then you're going to jump into Unreal and you're going to try to build it. You're going to try to make it really great. So over 2 full terms, you're going to kind of build a number of different portfolio projects. And we're really very focused on your portfolio. We really want you to build something great and build something that, is that you're going to go out and get a job with, because it's not just about having a resume. You really got to show what you can do. And that's what the game industry is really about. And then you'll spend your third term in the game design course really focused on just polishing and building that portfolio and getting you ready for a job. But we're also building your soft skills. We're going to teach you how to interview. We're going to teach you how to go get that job, how to talk the talk and walk the walk, as they say. And that's something that's also really important, that it's not just about, can you push buttons, right? This is really about a whole package that we try to give you to make you successful. So anyways, Maxine, anything else that I've forgotten?
I think you got it. Like, everyone's just so on the ball today. I love it. And we're learning so much about all of the courses. Thank you, Troy. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. I think that key thing about working as a team is so important. And it does take working as a team, because you might be able to do one thing great, but you need to be able to, have them soft skills to work in a team and to work in production. That's a really important point.
Yeah, and we have someone in the chat here saying Troy really sold that, and I
think I want to
sign
up. Yeah,
yeah,
I appreciate it. I'm very passionate, as you can see, and part of our course is listening to me, but part of that's just my passion comes through, and that's why I do what I do. So
yeah, and I think it shows with people like Troy, everyone we've heard from so far, and everyone that you will hear from, like Brian Griffiths, who is next. But all of the people here, myself included, most of us didn't think we would ever work at a school, but now that we do, it's so fun to actually help people and like teach them things that we wish we knew when we started. And it just feels really good. Whenever someone reaches out to me and tells me that they got an interview, I like jump around my apartment. It's so fun. Well, next up we have Brian. Thank you so much, Troy. Next up we have Brian. He is one of our mentors of game programming, and he has also, like everyone here, worked on some pretty amazing stuff. Brian, tell us about your background and tell us a little bit more about the game programming course.
Yeah, thanks. First off, I just want to say, actually, I have been a teacher, a mentor, an instructor, a professor for over a decade now. So it was one of the things that I always saw myself getting around to doing. But I've been very fortunate to be able to do it part-time while continuing to do all of my AAA adventures in the game industry and things like that. I always had a big academic background, traveling around with my father he was a PhD and an aquatic biologist, meeting all kinds of academics and young students. So I've been growing up in that, and it always looked like, a great way to share your knowledge and your adventures with other people that were just really keen on learning that subject. So it was always something in my mind that I wanted to get into. And I've continued it here with CG Spectrum, helping build some of the curriculum for the game programming courses. I used to work with Furious, who's another mentor in the game programming courses, and that kind of stuff at Ubisoft. So if you want to just go back for a second, I'll just do that. I've worked at Ubisoft with a bunch of our mentors. I worked at Silicon Knights with some of our other mentors. This industry is incredibly small. The people you work with can become lifelong friends that you will run into again, 10, 15 years later at a completely different studio in a different part of the world, even working on different projects together. So in my past, I've worked on multiple AAA games. I've been in the industry for just over 20 years. I started young at the age of 16 as an artist. It was something easy that I could do while in high school still. I could do art and jump online and work with a company down in California while I was up here in Canada and Ontario. I did art for their small web games and stuff like that. Felt like, hey, this is the path I want to get into, but art's great. I really want to have a more creative impact in building the actual mechanics though. And so I moved from art into Q&A and programming and continued my path at school in the same way. I went and did computer network engineering we didn't have courses again back then for this like we do now. So computer network engineering was sort of like the closest thing I could find at a college. So I went and did my technician level, then my technologist level. Then I bridged to a university to do computer science with a focus in AI and software engineering. At that point, I was like, okay, I think I've got this programming thing nailed down and all the hardware that goes along with it. Let's, get into the AAA industry and start running and see how far I can go. And now I'm a senior combat engineer for a company called Ascendant Studios on a AAA IP that I can't announce because it's not announced yet, but it's coming. So watch for it. And it's been a great ride. I've met so many people, and I really love the programming aspect because you are the person sort of creating everything for everyone. You create tools to get the art in, you create tools for the animators, you create the game engine, the physics systems, you rope them all together, you bring everything together as a programmer. You're sort of the first person on the project and usually the last person on a project also when it's shipping. And it gives you that full sense and experience. Let's talk a bit about the courses. So there is an intro to game programming course as well that we offer just for people who have never programmed before or people who haven't used C++, because let's face it, that is the main language we use for most video game engines and most games in general, in terms of AAA games, console games, PC games. Mobile has a little more flexibility there. Web obviously has a lot more flexibility in terms of what languages you can use. But C++, Unity, Unreal, all the major engines are written in C++. And so we need to make sure that people have a good grounding and a good understanding of programming, but also that language just because of its weight in the industry, really. After that, we also have, or if you already have all that covered from other things, we have a game programming course, which really its focus is on Unreal. We introduce Unreal in the first term. We show you the tools. Unreal is a massive, massive beast. You are never expected to actually be like an Unreal savant, or you can't really even say I'm an Unreal specialist because Unreal is so big. You're like a specialist of this little piece of Unreal, and there's 20 other specialists to cover all the other pieces. Unreal is just such a big tool. And so our first term is introducing all of the different pieces of Unreal that you would really need to utilize to ship a game. Right? We don't go too deep into the engine code at that level. We just, here's, how you hook up animations. Here's how you put together some characters, the input systems, all those kinds of things so that you could ship your own like indie level game with Unreal. The second term, that's when things heat up a little. We take what you learned in the C++ programming or whatever programming background you have, and we dive a little deeper into the engine. We go into the parts of the engine that can be expanded through all the coding, AI, multiplayer, the net code, that kind of stuff, those harder topics that, again, you could become a specialist down the road. You could be an AI programming specialist, a physics programming specialist, a network programming specialist. So we start touching on those paths so that if you really like that part of the engine and those kinds of features, then that's where you can start and push from there. So the second term, again, is introducing the deeper bits, some new tools that are a little more complex and let you pull off the bigger kinds of games. And then finally, the third term is, how do I make programming look good and, build a good portfolio so that I can actually get hired? Because let's face it, looking at a bunch of code, it's not very exciting for most people, even if they do understand it. And so we need to sort of show you how to package it better, how to make small demos that illustrate a new mechanic, a good system in a quick and easy to build way, right? And that's really what the third term is all about, is just making yourself approachable to employers. Right, letting them see the skills you've learned and in the areas specifically that you're most interested, so you get hired for the right kind of job. But yeah, that's a little bit about our course.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Thanks,
and
Brian.
yes, it's really good to hear that there are some more educational specialists in here, unlike me. But again, it all comes down to the passion. The people here want to teach, and regardless of their background, you're getting people who are actually working in the industry. I know, Brian, you just released your own like indie game. I think that was like one of the ones on the on here. Was it the Mayhem one?
Mayhem in Single Valley. Actually, that's a funny story. It's actually a bunch of my graduates that released that game principally.
Wow.
I served as their business mentor early on, showed them how to pitch a game, get funding for the game, start building the game. They got all that. They built a small team together. The creative director had come into the college, and I had shown him sort of like, hey, we hold these nights, come out and meet a bunch of students and, you know, see if any gel with you and form this team. And so he picked up a couple, and then near the last year and a half or so, then they're like, okay, now we're hitting the real hard stuff, and we want to switch gears and ship this on multiple consoles. Maybe could you start helping us do that process, get ready for porting and all, and you know, shader reflections in a 2D space that shows sky even though there is no sky. Sure, yeah, I can help you with the more technical issues. So I just wrapped it up really with them, but it was mostly them. I'm not going to take that credit. It was mostly them. I was just a mentor, right, guiding people on this journey to creating something great that can come to life.
That's so cool. Yeah, and this is the kind of personalized support you get from people that actually want to help you. Like, that's so cool. And yeah, we're seeing people in the chat saying that looks fun or love those stories. So we're going to keep the stories coming. Next up, we have Alex Laurie. He is the department head of foundations. Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself. I feel like it's like a therapy session. Like, tell me about yourself. What happened to you? How did you get here?
That's fine. So hi, my name is Alex. I'm head of foundations here at CG Spectrum. I'm also a dedicated mentor, and I wouldn't say recovering Canadian. I live permanently in Canada, so another Canadian in the field. So I started fairly young. I knew that I wanted to get into art or anything art related, creative based, because I didn't really have the chops academically, if I'm completely honest. In school, I always felt like I was behind the pack, only because I was a creative thinker. I was better with my hands and making things than actually, you know, coming up with concepts and striving for anything academically. Otherwise, my career started at Bardell Entertainment in Vancouver, Canada, and I've worked on TV series most of that time. Monster vs. Aliens, Puss in Boots, Ninja Turtles. I've been primarily an animator, but also I've been in the supervising role as well. Also, I've had a brief stint as a game animator too. All of those TV series have brought me all over the world, really. They've brought me overseas and many parts within Canada as well. So in foundations, we start with basics. We teach two major parts of the 3D industry, animating and modeling. This course prepares students to level up their skills and work up to more advanced courses at CG Spectrum. Students generate the confidence and the technical skill to study in areas like VFX and gaming. A little bit about the pathways. So in our pathways, so foundations is unique because it's more broad. Students get a lot of the basic skills. So so each pathway is one for virtual productions and the other for Houdini VFX. Those two pathways, both students are sort of mixed into the foundations course and are taught by the same or mentored by the same mentors. So they get a really good idea about what other people are doing. So other students, they'll pop into our max 4 student sessions. And so we get a variety of students interested in different things. And these students may not only be interested in VFX and virtual productions, they may be students that eventually find that they really have a passion for modeling or animating, because that changes. It did with me. I I started in a sort of multifaceted program too, and I was introduced to all kinds of things. And sort of through honing, I've channeled all of my energy eventually to animation. So that's why my portfolio here is highly biased towards animation. So we have 2 terms in foundations, and both terms they deal with the basics. So we learn the principles of animation and the concepts in modeling as well, modeling pipelines, creative modeling, all kinds of really fun stuff. Of course, with the group sessions, we get a really good variety of student work, and it's always fun to get caught up on what students are doing. So the varieties of mentors we have is key to the foundation success, giving students access to working individuals in gaming, VFX, 3D modeling, animation. So our mentors, that's where it's at. They're giving lots of good knowledge, and they're not the only they're not the only mentors that students can rely upon. We have the Slack channels, which deliver all kinds of new mentors to students that want to find out more about what they want to be or where they want to go, their personal goals. So, I mean, I think that covers everything. In conclusion, foundation is a necessary step to ratchet up to more localized areas of study here at CG Spectrum. Oh, I think that's it for me. Over to you, Maxine.
Thanks, Alex.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alex. Yeah, and the foundations courses are so cool because you get to like try out a little bit of everything. So it's really popular for students who they know that they want to work in VFX, or they know they want to work in games, but they're not sure exactly where yet. You know, they haven't really decided, like, is it animation? Is it Houdini? You know, so those courses are great. I love meeting students from those courses because they get to try a little bit of everything. And you know what? While most of them do go into advanced programs, which is ideal, every once in a while we get some superstars, and I've had some people find jobs directly out of the foundations courses. They learned like a nice foundation and then they kind of like kept learning on their own on the side and working with their mentors in the community and making some really sweet portfolios. So yeah, our next guest, Ben Fox, is unfortunately unable to make it today, but we do have a recorded video from Daniel Horrigan, who is our manager of effects, or sorry, our department head of effects. And I'm going to share that with you right now. So give me a second and I will share this next video that we have for you. Also, Daniel is in Australia, so that's another one of the reasons why he's not with us here live. This is in the middle of the night for him, so he's gonna give you some information anyway. I know, right? But yeah, we're worldwide. But anyway, here we go. Here is Daniel Horrigan. I hope you enjoy.
Hi guys, sorry I can't be there today. My name is Daniel Horrigan and I'm the manager of VFX and the head of the Houdini Effects course here at CG Spectrum. I've worked in film, TV and games effects for a little over 15 years now, working on such projects as John Wick, Game of Thrones and Aquaman. I use Houdini in my day-to-day work, and I also have been a mentor at CG Spectrum teaching Houdini for the last 3 years. Now, for those of you that don't know what Houdini is, it's a full-featured 3D package. You can do modeling, animation, visual effects, even compositing. It is primarily used in the visual effects industries for creating effects: fire, smoke, explosions, water, that sort of stuff, magic. In recent years, though, it has been gaining traction in other disciplines, so modelers will use it, world builders for games and terrain creation. It is an incredibly flexible tool set. So even if you're not interested in visual effects, it is worthwhile taking a look at Houdini and seeing how powerful it is and what you can potentially use it for. our Houdini courses are primarily focused on the effects component, but we do demonstrate some of the other uses that you could potentially use Houdini for. So let's have a look at the Houdini effects offerings that we have at CG Spectrum. If you see here on our slide, we have an intro to Houdini effects, which is our first term teaching you the basics of Houdini, but also showing you quite a lot of good, useful knowledge that even someone that may have touched on Houdini before would still benefit from taking this course and learning some key production techniques. Definitely simplified, but it's a good foundation for going on into our larger, more advanced course. So in the Intro to Houdini course, we have 12 weeks of starting off with learning the basics, learning how to navigate the user interface, learning, how Houdini works. Then we learn a bit about animation and particles, working with attributes, RBD destruction, smoke and explosions, my favorite area of Houdini, water and fluids, and then learning how to do a kind of chocolate pour, like something you might see in a commercial. And then finally, we sort of put everything together that we've learnt and produce a final project, which is a sort of magic battle of two people fighting, and you can do all sorts of interesting magical effects there. Continuing on into the Advanced Houdini course, we have 3 terms, each of 12 weeks, and those are broken up into, the first term is working with assets, learning about VOPs and noise and sort of building on things that we had touched on in the introduction course, but going deeper into those, learning about VEX scripting and learning useful VEX scripting that might benefit you in the production environment. Advanced copying techniques, geometry fracturing, then we go into the RBDs again, and just in the introduction course we sort of give you a taste of it, but then in the advanced we're sort of going much deeper and giving you a greater understanding of how these things actually work. So we're looking at different fracturing techniques, constraints, how to hold these things together, how to activate them, and looking at RBDs specifically in the production context. Then we go into advanced pyro simulations, so we take what we did in the RBDs and add dust, and then we look at setting a room on fire, and finally the final project of the first term in the advanced course is a sort of epic space battle, something like you might see in Star Wars, spaceships exploding. Then term 2 is very much about fluids and vellum, so cloth simulations. So we have 6 weeks of in-depth fluid simulations, from small scale fluids, controlling fluids in different ways, viscous fluids and sticky fluids. And then we go to the other end of the scale, which is oceans and giant splashes, looking at how we can use the ocean tools in Houdini and blending simulations into those larger oceans. From there we go into vellum, and we start looking at all the different ways that vellum can be used. So there are many different things that vellum can do. It's not just a cloth solver. You can also do grains and hair and fur, soft bodies, even fluids. There are lots of different ways that we can use vellum. So we spend 6 weeks just going through all those different ways, and finally a project at the end which sort of demonstrates we understand and can use all those different things together. Then term 3 is a really good way to wrap up the advanced course, and it's basically you've done your tutorials now, you've learnt how to use Houdini. Now it's 12 weeks with your mentor working on projects for your portfolio. So you could finish off projects that you've already started in the previous terms in that time, or you can start completely new projects. For example, you may have seen in the student showcase Ivan's work here in the middle. That was a project that I did with him on that portfolio term, where we just took some assets and we just worked through it. It was a me and him one-on-one session, so we just kind of every week we would talk about what he had done and what he needed help with and work on that. So I really like that time. It's a really good time to sort of get into the nitty-gritty of a project and spend a bit more time, really polishing things and getting them ready for your portfolio, which you're going to ultimately send to a prospective employer. So that's our terms in a nutshell for both the intro and the Houdini effects course. I can't be there today to answer any of your questions, but if you do have questions and you want to talk to someone in the effects department, please reach out to CG Spectrum and we'd be happy to answer any of your questions about our Houdini courses. Thanks.
Oh, that was
Thank
great.
you.
I know personally I've used Houdini a bit and I love it. So definitely want to keep an eye out for you.
Yeah, it's such an amazing program, and we also have quite a bit of job success from our mentor, or from our Houdini FX program, because there's so many specialized skills and so many different things you can do with Houdini, which is cool. Next up, we have Sean. He is the department head of Nuke compositing. Hi, Sean. And he's another person that I used to work with. So that's pretty cool. It's a small world. Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself and the course and what we can expect.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Maxine. Appreciate it. Yeah, so just a little bit about my background. I'm one of those people that grew up in like in academia. My family was very big on that. So when I started out, I got an undergraduate degree in 3D character animation. That was back when it was a lot more of a generalized programming. A lot less was known about the fact that you need to be specialist in your different areas of focus. So going through that, I kind of hit upon a number of different areas and eventually kind of landed more leaning into VFX, which was where I was kind of wanting to end up. Not so much animation, but more on the other end of things, sort of making the explosions and seeing where that lands. I ended up deciding to go on to get a master's degree in visual effects, actually. And during that time, my focus directly centered around digital compositing. So that was kind of where the decision was made. During the time I was in graduate school, a number of opportunities came up, working on some music videos, commercials, some small indie-based features and episodics. Ultimately, that was if we call it that Hollywood big break moment, it was when I had a chance to work out of my apartment, actually. My roommate, my best friend still to this day, he's actually one of our CG Spectrum folks. We worked on Ghost Rider together for several months, and that was sort of what seeded for me. This is where I want to be. I'm going to be in this industry forever. I love it. Eat it, breathe it. That's it. I ended up going out to Los Angeles. I was taken notice by some studios out there. I ended up landing at Rhythm and Hughes, actually. And random trivia, Scott Claus and I were literally in the exact same room working on Golden Compass at the same time. Didn't even know it until we met each other here at CG Spectrum. I think we're about 15 feet apart based upon deducing. And then fast forwarding through my career, I've been a senior compositor, compositing lead, compositing supervisor, just depending on what project and production. Had opportunities to work on a number of really exciting shows over the years. For me, if one were to ask what was some of the dream projects, obviously the Star Wars opportunities that came along were pretty cool. Some Marvel stuff, but really for me, the pinnacle was being able to work on Star Trek Picard. I was a Trekkie born and raised, so it was an amazing experience getting to stare at my favorite man, Captain Picard himself, for quite a while. But yeah, it's just been a great experience along the way. I've had a number of opportunities, and throughout it all, I've actually been with CG Spectrum for the last, I think I started in end of 2012 or early 2013. So it's been a lot of fun getting to see where things go. For me, the thing that matters the most, though, is taking that experience that I've had, turning it around and being able to share it with others. It's a really empowering opportunity to be able to say, hey, this is what we've done. Here, let me help you avoid some of those pitfalls that others like us have gone through. Telling you a little bit about our programs, it's a really exciting thing with compositing, because as statistically speaking, we actually have an over 90% placement ratio with our compositing graduates here at CG Spectrum. And when you start out, you start out in the Intro to Nuke compositing class. That might sound like it's like an introduction, and when in fact it is, but it also hits upon a lot of the foundational skills that are required to be a compositor. Going into this, we do not want you to have an unknown basis, because if you understand the backbone of how Nuke, which is our compositing software, that's the premier package that's utilized in the majority of the industry, if you don't have that foundational understanding, it's a lot harder to associate and ultimately become more efficient at what it is you're doing. So during that Intro to Nuke compositing class, we teach you a lot of the basics like rotoscoping, tracking, color correction, how to blend properly between computer generated elements and live action, green screen integration. It's all touched on in a loose manner, doing full CG computer generated shot compositing, and landing you some pretty cool and exciting, albeit explosive project shots for your portfolio. Moving into the Nuke compositing course, that's a 3-term course. And once you start into that, that's where you really hit the ground running. At that point, your mind's made up. You know you want to be a compositor. Now it's just a matter of building those skills and becoming reliant on the very aspects that you need when you're pulling from your digital toolbox as a compositor. During those 3 terms, you'll be hitting on a lot more mid-level and even some pretty advanced techniques. You're going to be going and working into Nuke 3D, building out an entire scene and recreating camera projections and building out an entire shot in Nuke 3D. You're working in areas such as production removal. We're hitting a lot of those practical exercises that compositors are expected to hit when going into the industry. For us as compositors, it's an interesting category in post-production visual effects because we hit a lot more shots than what might be found within the entire post-production or animation and visual effects pipeline. We're doing things like screen inserts. You can imagine actors with a cell phone and doing something. There's nothing else that's needed, but they're touching on their phone and we need to add that insert to make it look like there's something on the screen. Additionally, there's a lot more mid-level and advanced assets and projects that are provided for you to experience. You're going to be hitting into full CG compositing on up to what would be considered tentpole visual effects shots, leading into your final term, which is where you build out your portfolio and create your own custom shots that reflect not only your techniques and skills that you've acquired along the way, but also what your eye and how your mind works in regards to digital artistry. It's a lot of fun and we really do enjoy. And for us, what we say is we make the impossible possible. And that's really what it comes down to. Live, breathe, and eat that stuff all day.
Thanks so much, Sean. Yeah, so much in the course. And I can confirm, because we pulled the numbers recently, that our compositing course currently has the highest placement rate. Obviously, like, things fluctuate as people graduate. We have new graduates every month, but right now the compositing course is our highest placement rate course. So if you're looking for a job ASAP and you're not really sure what direction to go in yet, this might be a good option. Just a little hint.
Give me a call.
Very sought after.
And speaking of some good placement rates and good courses to consider if you're someone who wants to future-proof your career and work on some of the latest technology and innovations, we have William Fauché here. He is one of our mentors of the real-time production course. William, tell us a little bit more about yourself and also the course, which is one of our newest courses here at CG Spectrum. I'm excited about it, but I think you should tell us a little bit about it.
All right. Thank you so much. So I started my career back in, I want to say 2009. So pretty much right after high school, I got myself into the games industry. So the first half of my career was spent in games, small studio, and it's kind of where I learned mostly how to be a generalist. So I've mostly been a generalist through my whole career. Mostly started out doing some effects work. I got hired originally as an effects artist in games. And then, eventually it's a small studio. When you're working in a small studio, you tend to touch a little bit of everything just because you have a lot of shoes to fill. So it eventually did some more modeling work, texturing work, character, environment art, a little bit of animation here and there, and really just kind of help patch any hole that we may have during the production. Because, in small studios, if anyone is sick one day or a parent has to go pick up his kid at kindergarten or whatever, you always have these shoes to fill. And so there was a really great learning experience in becoming a generalist, at least in games. And then after about 6 years of that, I kind of grew fed up and I wanted to do a career change like many other mentors. Went traveling for a while, for a good year or so. And after a while, that itch kind of came back, like, oh, I really want to do ZBrush or sculpt some more, do some 3D modeling. It really came back and I couldn't get away. I couldn't stay away. So started applying for other jobs and eventually managed to get a job in Norway working in visual effects. So I'm Canadian originally, born and raised just outside Montreal. And but yeah, so then I kind of went overseas and joined Storm Studios in Norway. So they're a VFX studio. And that was also a tremendous learning experience because my way into VFX is a little bit unconventional. It's rare that you kind of go from games into film like that. But fortunately, the project that they were working on at the time was an Unreal Engine based project. And I've been using Unreal since 2008 or 2009 or something. Back in the days of Unreal Engine 3. So there was UE3, and then there was UDK, then Unreal Engine 4, then UE5. And yeah, so knowing Unreal was kind of my way into the VFX industry. And after that project was over, they kind of kept me on, and that's where I started. My first project in film was actually Black Panther. So working with Marvel was a pretty awesome experience. Again, humongous learning experience. You learn so much on the job. And again, as a generalist, I was doing a little bit of everything. So it was never a boring day. So I was, I think having worked in both games and VFX had kind of given me a bit of a unique insight, especially now that Unreal is being used more and more in visual effects. So knowing Unreal, knowing the needs of VFX artists, it kind of helped me, teach that to other people. And that's how I started my YouTube channel. So for those of you who are not familiar with some of my work, so I've been doing Unreal Engine tutorials on YouTube. And and as a result, that's when I went on to join CG Spectrum. And so I actually made a part of the world building course for the virtual production course here. And mostly because having started a YouTube channel, I was very, acutely aware of all the questions people would ask me. I would notice all these things that people would struggle with the most. And so that gave me a really good idea of what people needed in a course. So starting off with the intro to real-time and virtual production, this is kind of an intro beginner's course. So if you don't know anything about Unreal, if you don't know anything about real-time, anything, it's a really good course to take. And we kind of encourage people to take that just because that kind of leads into the real-time 3D and virtual production course, which like I said, the world building course that I made is a little bit more advanced, and I expect the students to have at least a foundational bit of knowledge there. So that's where the intro comes in real handy. It fills in all the gaps. It teaches you the foundations, everything you need to know before carrying on. And so once you've done the intro, you'll jump into the real-time 3D virtual production course where we'll be doing world building. And so that's the one I built myself. We'll be talking about from really the basics, landscapes, texturing, advanced material. We'll be doing a lot of lighting breakdowns as well. So lighting is not an exact science, and we'll be breaking down examples in film. So we'll be looking at screenshots from movies and breaking down hey, how did they light these shots, and try to replicate that as much as possible. Following that's when we roughly around the middle of the world building course, we start building our own environment from scratch. We create a whole shot, 2 or 3 shots in total, and then we end up with a nice little cinematic by the end of that term. And so I kind of hold you by the hand throughout that whole process, from the blocking out to the detailing to the good practices, lighting, rendering, color grading, and finally getting a nice cinematic out of there. And then by the end of that 3rd term, you're going to be jumping into more of the virtual production side of things. So with more cinematography things, blueprint, cinema camera actor, digital humans. We'll be doing a little bit of facial motion capture as well. So it's really exciting, and virtual production is kind of cutting edge. It's a little bit of the Wild West right now because everyone's kind of figuring out what the best approach is to do things. And so we have quite a few mentors who are extremely well-versed in this and can really help you hit the ground running and hopefully get you a job pretty quickly. And just because everyone's hiring for virtual production right now, it's exploding. It's getting so big, very popular. So it's a lot of fun. And lastly, we have our Unreal Connectors course, which is very intense. So we cover the same thing that we cover in the intro and real-time 3D virtual production course, but it's very condensed. So it's a full 40 hours a week at least. It's very intense, but if you got the time, it's pretty nice because it does take you less time to get through it. But be prepared. You really should have a large number of hours to dedicate to it. And I think that covers it. So back to you, Maxine.
Thank you so much, William. Loved hearing about your background. We even got some questions that we'll answer that I think are directed to you here in the chat. So we'll talk about them after we get to the Q&A. But next up, we have Hong Chen Lim. Hello, Hong. Hi, and he's going to talk about 3D modeling. He is one of our mentors of the 3D modeling course here at CG Spectrum, and he has worked for some amazing studios. Hong, take it away. Tell us about your background.
Hi guys, my name is Hong. I'm at Blizzard Entertainment right now as a principal lead character artist. Worked on Overwatch 1, Overwatch 2 at Blizzard, working on unannounced survivor game right now. Before that, I worked on a game called Wildstar. I don't know if anybody knows about the game, but the game was built from the WoW team who got hired by NCSoft back in 2007. So we had a ground level build up from the company, and then we developed for about 8 years on that MMORPG project at the time. So it was really fun. After that, I moved to Amazon Studios, working on New World. I was roughly there not too long, but I set up the character development and then R&D stuff and looked at the beginning of the stage. And then I moved to Overwatch team. And my early career, I worked in EA for their Superman Returns games back in 2005. Worked on Godzilla Unleashed the game in 2006. So I've been working in different studios. I worked on like Google as a freelancer. I worked at Tesla for freelancer, for modeler. I did have a lot of fun experience jumping around the company and then learn their different cultures and different like work pipeline and all that. So that's me. And with the CG Spectrum, I've been working with CG Spectrum mentor for 3.5 years now. It's been really amazing experience working with students, very talented students. Some are really great. Some are very passionate. I've seen some great works coming out from like all this time I've been here. Not only that, but like all the supporting team of the career side of it, like the vaccine side of it, and all the supports from like student care. A lot of like I think this team like in CG Spectrum like all worked like harmonized and worked out really well to support students in different countries, different time zones and everything. So I feel not only satisfied as a mentor, but like just from the like students perspective, I felt that like they have been feeling like really cared and everything. So I have been really having great experience teaching here at CG Spectrum. About the 3D modeling courses, we have 2 passes. So first one is the three terms one. So if this is someone who is for sure, hey, I want to work on become modeler, right? Either character modeler, environment modeler, I want to become modeler. And then for sure, that is my goal. I recommend that. But if you are unsure, like which path you want to go into, animation, VFX, all the like amazing courses that we have. Like if you're not sure and if you want to kind of touch the like surface of what the modeling is, I recommend the Pathway 2. So even if you take the Pathway 2, you can take first term, and if you want to continue, and then you can go into term 2 and 3, or all the way along to the advanced course. And then of course, advanced course, we not only advanced course, but from the intro to advanced course, like we planned out everything like throughout from very basic knowledge of how to model things, like from the box modeling portion of it, ZBrush, like a basic intro, how to like sculpt, texturing, what PBR is, how to texturing like a substance painter, and how to work with like shaders and Arnold render, so like a Marvelous Designer for clothing, or Houdini for clothing or modeling, lighting. Like we touch up a lot of stuff, but those are really coming accordingly, depending on from week 1 to advanced course. You see that some of the example of students' work here. They have been really working hard on it, and then I did see their week 1 to when they're like actually finishing it. It's pretty amazing how much they learn and how much they grew. not only like all of our mentors like working hard for them, but these students like really hard for themselves too. And that we have like fully supported team with TAs, like huge kudos to those the TA people, like they help out all the time. We have all the like general like modeling chats in our Slack channel, that if you post the questions, like TAs will get back to you like right off the bat. So like everyone's very supportive here, very friendly. Nobody's judging here. Everyone's excited. We are all geek, including myself. Sorry, I'm speaking a little too long, but I really highly recommend. I wish, like me personally, like I wish I had like online schools like this when I was in college 20 years ago. But this is like the words are changing, right, guys? Like colleges are really great. I think on-site schools are still good, but like online schools like nowadays is like next level. I think City Spectrum really brought like industry standard school, like online school to the surface. And then I'm happy to be part of it. And if you are thinking of taking the course, I wish you join, and I wish you take modeling side. All right, thanks guys.
Thanks so much.
As a fellow modeler, I completely agree. You should take that course.
And as a fellow nerd, I agree that we're a cool school to be around other nerds with. But yeah, I think what Hong said about seeing the students work from like the first term, you know, when you start out and you don't know anything yet, or even the people who maybe think that they know a little bit, you know, and then seeing their final term project, or even after 1 month or 3 months, you know, just seeing that progress along the way is so inspiring. Next up, we have our CG Spectrum commercial. This is so exciting. We just launched it a few days ago, but we're going to share it here again just to give you a little taste of some of the things that you might be able to create on your own time. Everything that we've done in this commercial is something that you can do yourself. So without further ado, I'm going to share this now so y'all can watch it. Here we go.
People will tell you a lot of things. That you have to take the traditional route. That you can't make a change. That it isn't possible. We're not those people. We're the people who do this. You can battle monsters trying to break in. Or you can join us at CG Spectrum.
Can I get a round of applause here or what?
I'll never get bored of watching that.
Cool. I know, so right? Impressive. I know. I agree. It's such a fun little commercial that we put together, and here to talk about it are some of the people who worked on it. We have Sean is back here, William, Alex, Lori. Tell us a little bit about the pipeline and how you actually put that together. Give the people some info about how something like this gets done.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Maxine. Appreciate that. We also, I just want to throw it in there. We have Penny over here too. She's the one that made that awesome poster you see right there. I didn't
see you on the screen, Penny. Sorry.
I was like, should I turn my video on? Maybe I'll just hide back here. Maybe no one will notice me.
Get in
here.
Okay.
You're part of it. You're in thick. You know, it was a fun project. I mean, when we first started talking about this, it was last year, and the conversation that centered around the fact that, hey, look, you know what? We feature a lot of what our students do, but we also want people to know that you are learning from the industry best. We wanted to put our money where our mouth was, so to speak, you know, that age-old term. And we wanted to be able to illustrate what many of our mentors are capable of. While not every mentor was able to work on the project, this is a direct reflection on every single individual that's a part of CG Spectrum. You know, we started out where we did the full production, or pre-production and planning stages, where we storyboarded it out and planned the entire project. The script was written. We then went into production, where we went on set and shot stuff out in the high desert out here north of Los Angeles, as well as on location in a building here in LA. We'd hired a film crew to be a part of that, some amazing industry artists as well that participate in that end. And then when it went into post-production, which is our area, this is the area that we wanted to shine for CG Spectrum. We basically took it through every single step that you would normally do in a post-production or a visual effects studio. We had everything from the concept art and the character designs on up to modeling and texturing of the character. We then went into rigging of the character. We also did layout and environment. You know, William Fauché, for example. Thank you, William. You rocked that out. We pulled everything, including Unreal, and built it out. We took 3D camera tracks, brought that into Unreal, brought that into Maya for our worm, for animation. On into the look, dev, and lighting, getting everything seated properly into the ultimate final scene. The character was animated. In the effects category, we had the big ol' nuclear explosion in the background. We had missiles firing, and probably what was the most intense was getting all that sand and explosive effects that was happening when the worm, including drool, when the worm explodes up behind our actor in the foreground. It was a pretty exciting opportunity to be able to walk through that, because the other big catch is productions are always under lock and key. Everything that we work on in this industry is under non-disclosure agreement way sooner than you would ever expect. And you can't speak about it until the movie, game, episodic television, whatever that category is, has been released to the public. And even then, many times you can't. I've got NDAs that I've signed that are in perpetuity for my life that I would never be able to speak about, you know, and it's a pretty incredible opportunity, because what we did was we documented this from the start to the finish, because we wanted to be able to allow people the opportunity to see exactly what went into it, at least from a bird's eye perspective, which also helps illustrate opportunities for careers that if people are trying to choose where they want to go. All these different categories are exactly what we teach here. And you're learning from the very people that do this, that are quite literally writing the rule book about what we do in this industry. And, you know, throwing it even one step further, not only did we put out the trailer, but we released the behind the scenes videos that shows and walks through that. I encourage everybody to take a look at it. That's probably one of the best ways and opportunities to be able to see and get a feel for exactly where you might want to land in our industry. But overall, it was a great process. We even added our own little Easter eggs in there. Penny was our on-screen, I call it stunt person. She was the one that was on the screen at the end of the commercial, and her poster is in the commercial. You just got to look for it. Easter eggs are some of the best things, because that's where the artist's signatures typically lie in visual effects. But yeah, it was a great project. And ultimately, to me, it reflects just how amazing every single artist who teaches and is a part of CG Spectrum as a whole, and the level of quality that we expect when we are allowing others the opportunity to participate. That's it. Thanks, Maxine.
Thank you, Sean. And thank you, everyone who put in their time and effort into creating this amazing commercial. You can check out the credits, and also we just dropped it in the chat. If you want to see the breakdown of how we created that commercial, you can check it out. The link is in the chat. Click on it, bookmark it, if you want to learn more about the visual effects pipeline and the process. Next up, we have Yan, who is part of our admissions team. She's a CG Spectrum course advisor, and is another person I used to work with. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've worked with so many people here.
We all worked together at the same time.
Oh yeah,
well.
Dave, yeah, it was me, David, and Yan. We all worked together back at Mr. X. So you know that even on the admission side, you are talking to someone who understands the industry. This is not like some call center. This is not a robot. This is not AI. We have Yan here. Yan, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us about the admissions process.
Thank you, Maxine. And yeah, so excited to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm Yan, and 100% real person. As Maxine mentioned, that I was working in the same visual effects studios with Maxine and David in the past. And that experience led me to my current position here with you all. My position as an advisor in CG Spectrum, where I can share some of what I learned from the industry in the past to any students or young artists that when they need some advice on a career choice and want to make the next step to improve their professional skills. So now I'm a member of the admissions teams. We are basically the first contact point for students who send us an inquiry about the school or industries. We have members in both Australia and North America, which means that we can cover all different time zones if you want to schedule a call or schedule a Zoom meeting with us to discuss further with your situations. So let's go through some of the topics that we discuss a lot with students every day. First thing first, the most important thing is the application process. We usually receive students' application form when they click on the apply button on our websites. After we receive the form, we'll reply within 3 business days just to confirm that that's the course you want to do, which start dates you preferred, what study options works better for you, and any additional requests you want to put in. After we receive your confirmation, we will send you an enrollment contract with all the details about payments and course information for you to review. Once you sign the enrollment contract and send it back to us, you're officially enrolled, and our accounts team will reach out and help you to process your first tuition payments. If you are a student that with certain experience in the field already, we can also discuss the prerequisites for the advanced course for you. We can also go through portfolio requirements, or we can do a free assessment for you on your portfolio to see if you are qualified to skip certain level of the course and get into the advanced course directly. We also will direct students to information like curriculum, course guidelines, computer specs, or articles about the industry updates, any kind of resource that you can think of that can help you make a decisions on what course will help you the best. CG Spectrum is a private school, which means that we have a lot of flexibility to tailor the course for students based on their special request. But being a private school also means that our courses are not accredited officially internationally. So our graduates will receive a digital certificate, and they are recognized as relevant training by major studios and organizations all around the world. I see that there's some questions regarding the financial aid in our Q&A sessions. So to start it with CG Spectrum directly right now, we currently don't provide any financial aid to students. However, good news to students who are in the United States, we do have a partnership with Hashing College in the States, in which will allow students from the States to apply for financial aid and attend the collaboration program powered by CG Spectrums. As it differs from studying with us directly, so to know more about it, I'm going to send you an email address that you can email to know more about it, and I'm going to send it on the live chat later so you can chat it out. So finally, please feel free to send us an email directly if you'd like to talk further with us. Besides me, Brenda, which is my teammate, also answering questions at the end today. And again, so nice to see you all, and very excited to hear back from you soon. Pass it back to you, Maxine.
Oh, my mic was off. Thanks, Yan.
Thank you, Yan.
Always nice to see a familiar face around here, especially because we're all working online. I don't go to an office anymore to see my coworkers, but I love it here. So next we're going to talk about what makes us unique. So the CG Spectrum community is amazing. I've been here for about 2 years, and like many people have said already, I wish something like this existed when I was going to school, because we are pretty unique compared to other schools. So we have a community that's based on Slack where we share information about jobs, internships, contests. I'm always sharing things with students when things come up. We also host exclusive career events with guest speakers. I am in the process of organizing some pretty special events for our students with some studios, and I haven't announced this to students yet, but I'm going to let you know here. We're going to host a meeting with Epic Games that's going to be exclusive to CG Spectrum students, talking about internships and careers and how to get into this industry. And we're also going to talk about things like imposter syndrome and a lot of the career switching type topics that I can see are very popular here today. That's what our Epic Games exclusive webinar is going to be all about. That's just for CG Spectrum students. And we have another one happening soon also with ILM. I'm really excited. We also have jobs boards on Slack. So we have areas on Slack that you can check to see what jobs are out there. And Slack is great because it also gives you the ability to share your work with other people, share your ideas with other students, and not just share things that are finished and like looking great, but also share things that are broken, things that don't look good, things that you need help on. This is what our community is best for. It's a private little community. We call it our little safe space because it's just CG Spectrum students and mentors. You don't have to worry about sharing stuff in the public and other people seeing it. Another thing that's great about our community is the relationships and partnerships that we have with external studios and organizations. So I'm always talking to people from other studios, in addition to all of our mentors, people like David here who works at DNEG. So you get direct partnerships and relationships with people who work in studios, and you're getting information and context into what it's like to work there. And we also offer special offers and discounts for our students. So we're always talking to different software providers, hardware providers. We recently had, I think, some discounts with Wacom that came out in the past. Sometimes we even host contests for our students where they can win stuff. So we're always looking for ways to get a good deal for our students, especially because some of this stuff is not cheap or free. And so getting access to good software, plugins, asset library packs and stuff like that, we're always looking to find good discounts on things for our students because we get a nice group discount. David, tell us about the mentor process.
Well, so your mentor is your primary person that you'll talk to through your journey. And I think having direct access is, I've talked about it before, but it's very important to just be able to chat to your mentor, ask them questions, even if you've got something wrong with let's say if you're doing a 3D modeling course, with your model, like technically if something's wrong, I can say, oh, I've had this problem before, I've had this bug, and, with their experience, they can show you, all these fixes and everything. And, it's not just in the Q&A sessions that we have with you. You can message us anytime if you're stuck, and it'll come straight to us and we can reply to you straight away. The small classes and personalized feedback are super important because I remember when I was a student and I was in university and we'd be in these huge lecture halls and you couldn't ask the questions, you couldn't have, 50 people asking very specific questions, and that lecturer wouldn't have time to answer all of them. Or, if you're having a problem, you couldn't go through the internet and trawling through forums trying to find the answer. You get it direct, and it's in really small groups. So it's really friendly and everybody's really encouraging. And it's just really great to have that access to the smaller classes. Valuable industry insights based on real world experience, which is huge because the real world experience is what will get you sort of your job, essentially. I can tell you from my experience, this is what recruiters look for. This is what people are after. And tailoring your course and what you're learning towards that will no doubt land you a job. Specific creative and technical guidance, and which is really important because your technical skills and your creative skills, although you might think they will fit into one, they're actually two separate skills that are really important to learn and to develop. And it's good for your mentor to help you in them. They know the softwares like the back of their hands. They'll know it technically, and then they'll know creatively with their experience how you can get around sort of artist's block. If you're having a bad time or you can't really figure out something, your mentor might just turn around and say, well, just go back to basics, let's break it down from the start again. And that's something I really wish I had when I was a student as well. Portfolio and project critique from a technical and creative perspective, which is kind of just what I hinted on, but the portfolio critique is also very valuable, especially if you're looking for a very specific job. Like, let's say if you're looking to do something about cars, or if you're looking for a specific industry or company you want to work at, your mentor will say, oh, well, this is exactly what they'd look for, and you'd want this type of car and all this sort of things. So it's things like that just give you the edge against everybody else. And the ability to ask relevant questions about career path and work experience, which is number one as well. All these things are so important, because having that access to a mentor and being able to share experience, and my students like to know about little anecdotes and things about my job that don't seem necessary to your career or to finding a job, but they're actually very important. And little tales about how you deal with clients and learning little soft skills and all this sort of stuff all add up and just really adds to the developing of your skills to get a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like such a good experience to have the ability to talk to someone real and like not just go over the course material. I think a lot of schools just focus on like the courses and that's it, which, we've put a lot of time and effort into creating our courses, but it's really that mentorship that takes you that extra little bit further, that gives you the context, and it brings the human element, I think, to your learning. Even though we're online, it's very personalized, I would say, more so than a lot of in-person schools. So next is sort of my section, because I am the career development manager here at CG Spectrum, and here are some things that I can do to help you as you go through your course. First of all, you have access to me throughout your whole time here at CG Spectrum. So I talk to some people when they start. I talk to some other people, most students like closer to the end of their course. But I even talk to some students after they graduate. So I still am in communication with people who graduated over a year ago, some of which who have jobs, and they're still asking me questions about like, hey, where should I go next? Or hey, can you help me like read this contract or something like that? So I love chatting with people and being that person for them, someone who they can trust, who is unbiased when they ask me a question about their job or the studio they work at. So I offer one-on-one session time with these students. I can also help with portfolio and demo reel reviews. And I like to specifically give a lot more feedback based on how things are being presented. So I am not an expert in all of these different fields we've talked about today. So if you have a technical issue with Houdini, with the model you've created, I probably can't help you with that. But what I can help you with is tell you maybe how to present something better. Thinking about sites like ArtStation, like maybe like if you don't have a really good thumbnail chosen for each project, then nobody will really be inclined to actually click on it. Or if you don't have some really strong pieces at the beginning of your demo reel that people might not want to watch all the way to the end, or they might miss something. So I talk to people about how they present themselves depending on their audience and the type of job that they're hoping to get. I also give personalized resume and cover letter tips. So I help people by reviewing their resume, giving them feedback, and they do it all over again. Kind of like the rest of the courses where you get feedback from your mentor. I also help with internship and job applications. So, making sure you have your resume, if you send me a job description, we can make sure that we optimize everything for that particular job. And if you actually get an interview, you could message me quickly and say, hey, Maxine, I got an interview. And that is always like my favorite day of the week, is when someone messages me to say, hey, I got a job, or hey, I got an interview. And so if that happens, I can help by hosting a mock interview with you. It's one of my favorite parts of this job because I get to pretend to work at like Pixar or another studio. And then I ask students questions and I help them feel comfortable, and we record it so you can watch it back after and see like how you answered things. Maybe you could answer this better. And we chat about it after to talk about like, what were your strong points? What were your weaker points? And so when you have your actual interview, you feel a lot more confident and you're not as nervous because you already did one with me and you got all the jitters out. I also, like I mentioned before, host some career focused events. We have have a couple lined up later this summer and fall that I'm pretty excited about. And we also have a jobs board and a careers newsletter that gets sent out. So keep your eyes peeled for those. Now on to our TAs. Here with me, we have Penny, currently a student in our advanced concept art course, but also our TA manager. Penny, tell us a little bit about your progress here with CG Spectrum and about the TA program.
Hey there, guys. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sticking around. My name's Penny. I am a current student, actually not based in Canada. I'm based here in Dallas, Texas, USA. I saw a few peeps in the chat earlier saying they were from around here, so nice to meet some neighbors. I'm also the head technical assistant of our student-led TA team. And back in 2020, I joined CG Spectrum during kind of the biggest wave of the pandemic. I was inspired to apply to this school after having sort of a self-reflection period of just in general what I wanted to do long-term with my career and my future. I didn't know this was going to be probably one of the greatest choices I ever made. I've always had a passion for art, and ever since I was little, I would draw characters, I draw creatures, especially from my favorite movies and games. Back in the day, I used to obsess over trying to copy like the inserts inside of games. To me, they weren't just the manuals, like they were kind of the mini art books that I first owned. And sometimes they had really cool concept art and illustrations in them. And some of them, actually, now that I kind of think about it, are some of the same games some of our mentors have actually worked on, which is really freaking cool to me. But overall, I've never really forgotten how that feeling of creating art actually makes me. So, it makes me super happy, and it's just something in general that I've always wanted to do. And so when I came across CGS, I felt just in general like this was a call to action. Like Maxine and the crew were saying earlier about career switching, I felt I had to just apply and take a chance that this was going to be the right move for me. And at this time, I had already been working in retail for pretty much the past decade, so I was a little rusty. And I needed like that extra one-on-one kind of assistance to kind of gear me up to where I needed to be and kind of reignite that spark again. And so I just decided to quit my full-time job. And at that time, I was just making that decision to invest in my schooling and help me better pursue my dream career in concept art and illustration. So that's kind of where I am. I started the intro course with my mentor, Eric Wilkerson. And because I loved it so much, I decided to take the advanced course as well, this time with Tyler James. Both are just geniuses. And, you'll come to find that, obviously, if you haven't kind of picked up on that bit already, all the mentors are kind of the bee's knees in terms of experience and professionalism. I couldn't tell you now where I'd be if I didn't have that type of interaction or that relationship with my mentor to help guide me like through some of those lessons. So during my course, I became a TA, a technical assistant, to help out some of my fellow students in the digital painting courses. Then eventually I've become the head TA. And what I do is I help bring on new TAs, and I help coach them, and they help coach students in all of their individual departments. So where I specialize in concept art and illustration, we have TAs that cover all of the departments. We've got TAs in modeling, game programming, game design and development, animation, everywhere. So, and they all cover different variety of time zones. So you're basically, if you can't get a hold of your mentor for whatever reason, there's always a backup, and TAs are kind of that extra resource for you. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey so far, and this experience is like no other, really. And I'm very excited I had this small time to kind of share that with you. And so yeah, speaking of bee's knees, I would like to go ahead and pass this on to one of my peers, Chris Mackney, who actually just became an alumni, and the biggest of congrats on completing your course as well, Chris. But here you go. Thank you, guys.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Penny. Yeah, it is definitely surreal to be here. I was legitimately here 1 year ago in this open day presentation, asking the same questions that some people are asking in the Q&A, and looking at switching my career a little bit and doing something different with my life. And yeah, like Penny said, it's actually, I think, one of the best decisions I've ever made. It is terrifying. I am in my mid-30s, and I had a safe, secure, full-time job, and I just started looking at what I wanted to do in the future. And I always had a passion for movies and games and visual effects, things like that. And I thought, yeah, I think that's what I want to do now. I want to kind of switch things up. So I do remember asking, I think in the Q&A, I asked Daniel at one point, can somebody take the foundations of VFX and get a job? And he was honest. He said, well, it's not impossible, but it can happen. And after taking the foundations of VFX, here I am. I'm happy to report not only a graduate of the program, but before I even graduated, I was offered a full-time job at a large VFX studio in Toronto. I'm another fellow Canadian. I feel like we're taking over the chat here, but I'm based in Edmonton. And with the pandemic and everything that happened, that was another reason I looked at switching careers, because Edmonton, I'm not sure who's aware of where that is, but it's not Vancouver, it's not Toronto. It's really kind of a small place in comparison, and especially for VFX, it really doesn't exist here. But I was looking at how things are changing. Remote work started happening, and that was something I don't think a lot of people anticipated. And I thought, man, if I could find a job remote, at a big studio, that would be amazing. And here I am. So just to back up a little bit, I'll try to keep it brief. But just to back up where I was, where I started, like I said, I was a full-time programmer for most of my professional career. I started on a lot of web development applications, things like that. For people who know, Flash, ActionScript, it's going to date me, but that's where I started. And then eventually moved on down the road. We did a lot of Unreal work at my last job, and I've been using Unreal Engine for about maybe 4 or 5 years now. And we did a lot of cool VR experiences with that. And I got more into like the technical side of things, like the art, like how do I get the 3D artist to be importing things in from Unreal, and how do we get that working in VR, and how do we optimize this? And I really like that problem solving side of things. And we eventually started moving on to like a real-time rendering, because we had a very small studio, we had like 5 or 6 people, and like that included 2 3D artists and 3 programmers basically. So I wanted to learn more about how to work in those 3D applications, because I did have some experience, but not a lot. So that's where the foundations of VFX course really spoke to me. It's a slight shout out I have to make to William as well. Huge inspiration to me. His YouTube channel, if you're doing anything in Unreal, he was main guidance for me working on our real-time rendering workflow at our office. Without him, I don't know if I could have done what I could have done. So huge thanks there. And when he announced that he was actually coming on to CG Spectrum, it was around the time I was looking at CG Spectrum. And when I saw he was going to be a mentor, I'm like, wow, maybe this school is, there's a lot going for it. It sounds like a good place to be. So eventually I just, like I said, I wanted to switch. I attended the open house. I took the foundations of VFX, and I really wanted to get into Houdini. That was my end goal. I started looking at the software and what it could be used for. And I thought, this is the software to learn. I mean, knowing Unreal, I definitely recommend people pick that up as well. Virtual production is huge now. And, Houdini is just another amazing piece of software. So the more you know, just the more opportunities you have. With that being said, I think that kind of summarizes where I've been. I think I'll chat a little bit more about the student experience after, but that's kind of my lifelong story.
I think it's my turn to speak now. Hey everyone, my name is Manuel. I am currently a game design student, and I see you and feel you on that career switch. I'm a trained actor with a BA in business administration, and I've been working 14 years at Cirque du Soleil as a creative director and also head of the events and experiences division. And when the pandemic hit, I kind of lost my job, like a lot of people in the live entertainment. And I was wondering what is next for me and what I should be doing. So I kind of had that flash where I was like, okay, well, the video game industry is blooming. And when I was young, I wanted to be making games. So why not take this opportunity and then just do that? So that's what I did. And I looked at multiple schools, and the one that really stood out for me was CG Spectrum, because I was thinking at the time I would keep my full-time job and then study. But then I was like, no, if I do it, I have to do it all the way. So I quit my job because I was back at Cirque du Soleil and it just wasn't the same. And I had that inspiration that I felt like I needed to do, and I didn't want to have any regrets. So I decided to do the course, and here I am. And I think it's enough talking about me, and that you're here to know how it actually works when you study at CG Spectrum. Basically, the week is divided into 3 big milestones. I'll take myself as an example. My Q&A session with my mentor is actually happening on Wednesday. So on Sunday, what I do is that I go to Canvas, where all the lectures, the assignments are stored. And then I watch all my lectures, review my assignments, and I start planning my week. So there is a lot of also extra materials that you can do if you have some spare time. And then once you have watched all your lectures, you can start your assignment. And then, because I'm in the game design department, I can actually upload my build into Box, which is where we submit our work. And before my Q&A on Wednesday, so let's say on Tuesday, I can upload my work, and my mentor has time to actually play my game and gather feedback, so that when we meet the next day, he's ready and he can give me advice. If it's level design, a game design document, he can give me a review of the game that he played, and then I know what I have to work on for the next couple of days. So then I can download the Q&A session and revise my work for the final pass, and then I submit it at the end of the week on Friday to have my final review. And this is very interesting because it's actually following the pipeline that you would have in a company. So you don't have like in usual schools, you have like, okay, you do this homework and then you have a mark and then it's over. At CG Spectrum, you do the work and then the next week you keep on working on it if it's part of your assignment. Or if you really are passionate about one assignment, you just can keep building and building, and then you have portfolio material that is ready to share. So I think that's it for the usual week. And now I pass it along to Chris to talk about the student experience.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Thank you, Manuel. So yeah, getting more detail on the student experience. It's a great course. Again, I can only speak for what I've seen, but I assume all the courses are as excellent as the one that I was able to take. So yeah, first of all, going into the course lessons, like Manuel already spoke a lot about that. And the lessons themselves, going through the videos and documentation, example files, that's really, I think, a small part. It's an important part, but I'm actually really a big fan of what CG Spectrum set up with the mentors. The last couple hours we've been talking, there's so many talented people in here. You just have to look at the page on CG Spectrum to see all the talent that's available. And these are industry experts. My mentor, who I had, was amazing. We had a lot of great one-on-one experience, which I opted for, and I would not be here without him. I basically said what I wanted to do, what my goal was, and he kind of catered the learning to meet those goals. He didn't just follow a rigid, you have to do it this week, and then we're doing this next week. No, don't touch that until term 2. He was very open to really everything that I wanted to do, and really go beyond just what the course lesson was. Beyond that, I think the biggest benefit of CG Spectrum has to be the community, the students, the networking opportunities. We've mentioned Slack a few times already, but I am basically constantly on Slack, and I've met a lot of really great people there, just asking questions. There's things posted there, like I think Maxine was going over the Unreal presentation, that opportunity, that's going to be available for students. One of the first things I attended as a student there was actually a talk from ILM going over the Jedi Academy program that they had, and that got me really fired up, and I really wanted to I think I actually did apply for it. Obviously, it was like 2 months into my education, so I did get a nice rejection letter, but it was a great opportunity. And lately, there was also SIGGRAPH was another opportunity that came up. There was a special presentation for student volunteers, and that was something I was able to actually take part in. So in the next week here, I am heading out to Vancouver to be a student volunteer, and that's something I always dreamed of going to SIGGRAPH. It would not be possible if I was not part of CG Spectrum, so that's amazing. Everything beyond that, yeah, working on your portfolio. I was lucky enough that I was able to get into a career right away. I anticipated a lot of portfolio work, but I was able to get hired on, which was great, and get some actual work experience there. But they do help you refine your portfolio, your mentor, and other people. And yeah, there's again job opportunities. I think everybody's spoken enough about that, but there's a lot of cool postings, a lot of opportunities that come up. And yeah, there's just the chance to work with a lot of amazing people. I've worked on little indie games through CG Spectrum, some students working together. There's a lot of really great things just again in the community, working with talented people like Manuel and Penny. I've worked with them on a few different things, so I just love being part of the team and just love being here. So again, I think Penny's gonna go forward, talk more about the TA role.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, so that brings us to our technical assistant program, our TA roles that we have internally here at CG Spectrum. Our TAs are just as it says here. They are powered for the students by the students, in that each TA in our community, including Manuel, who you just met, is either a current student going through one of the courses or has graduated already and is an alumni. The purpose of the program is to help students on a more peer-to-peer level, very much like you would, in any other kind of after-school program, a tutoring program. And it even sort of mimics that same peer-to-peer work that you'd experience on like a future team on an industry job. So not only do you have your mentors, but you also have us to help you succeed and to help you keep your pace, along with your course. And what TAs really do best is offer really valuable and constructive feedback and critique and support and encouragement. We're here as an additional resource to you in each of your departments. And whenever you need help on your coursework, even on your personal projects or any kind of side work you have going on, like we're here, that's just one of the things that we, we started early last year, I believe. It's already been kind of a year's worth of a program, but it's seen so much success. I think we have about 14 TAs now. So we're all over the place. It's so cool to interact with everyone. We also have a ton of cool activities that we like to host, and we encourage that you participate in. We do challenges, we do group huddles, we do themed Zoom sessions, exclusive interviews, Q&As. We bring on special guests, even from outside studios that are kind of looking for, intern opportunities, and they just want to introduce you about their work. But we even host like fun stuff like movie nights, very chill kind of activities to join in on. The last one we did was Night of the Living Dead, which was a blast. I'm a huge horror film fan, so that was an obvious pick. But we usually let the students kind of vote on movie nights. So again, very community driven. We want you to interact. We want you to kind of branch out and get to meet new people. And while not every department hosts the same things, we do sometimes try to find ways for cross-departmental activities to happen as well, just to help kind of introduce you to some of those other fields you might not know too much about, and also just to kind of understand how they work alongside you. Overall, we're here to encourage you as you go through the course, help kickstart that relationship building and networking skills you need to be successful once you're ready to start making applications and get out there in the industry. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but this is a paid opportunity. Like the school actually does pay us for this role. And, you know, it looks so good on a resume, even if you have no prior job experience. You know, CG Spectrum just wants to help ensure that all the students that are leaving here feel they've gotten the most out of their time. And this is just another way to help make you job ready and kind of get a legway into the, into the industry when your course ends. So thank you. Now I'd like to go ahead and segue off to our latest community video that we'd like to share with you. And of course, thank you guys so much for sticking around for this long. We are going to host a Q&A at the end, so please continue sticking around until then. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maria.
My name is Pietro Trizzullo.
Hi guys, Mario here.
My name is Noor Fillings.
I'm Loris Casgrande.
Hi, my name is Reid Yerian.
I'm James. I'm a 3D animation alumni. Animation was something that I'd always loved. I still have my letter I wrote to Disney Features when I was 8 years old, but it wasn't until I was approaching 40 that this opportunity to study animation came about, and I finally decided to take it.
I remember telling my students that I was teaching in Japan, like, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? And they all said these creative jobs. I would encourage them and then realize, like, oh, I should have done the same.
I was wanting to basically get a place where all the knowledge that I was getting was up to date. Sometimes at some universities, the knowledge you can get is, 2 to 3 years behind. And when it comes to, the industry of VFX, which is, heavily involved with computers and software, a year sometimes is like a lifetime of difference.
CG Spectrum was remote, and also I looked at the mentors, and they seem very expertise.
You will have a scheduled meeting every week with your mentor.
One of the strengths of CG Spectrum is their mentors. They're all professionals that have years of experience in the industry.
I also learned so much from him because he's a working animator and he had like real world tips that I could just scribble down as fast as I possibly could.
They talk a lot about what's happening in the industry. So not necessarily the stuff that you're making for school, but actually what they expect of you when you actually enter the industry.
It's not only learning something theoretically, you are ready to work as soon as you exit the school.
If I have to describe the CGS community in one word, it will be mesmerizing.
One of the hesitations that I had slightly about learning online was not being able to be there and meet fellow students. But once I learned how active the community was, the online community, I was pleasantly surprised.
There's a huge community on Slack.
They helped me so much because I share with them my personal projects.
And it really feels like a safe space where you can start getting used to critiques, which is very important.
If I'm having an issue with my animation, I can ask the community for suggestions. There will be at least one person who will respond and help me.
Even though I wasn't physically in a classroom, my peers that I was starting to network with were already located all around the world.
It's really nice to have people around you that are doing the same thing and are at least as focused as you are or just as curious as you are, and people that maybe in the future you will work with. Start on your portfolio while you're studying, because you want to have something to show for when you graduate.
I spent about 5-6 months polishing my shots, lighting them, rendering them, going over them again, changing them, just trying to put as much time as possible into that work because that's what would get me the job.
Lean into the things that make you feel uncomfortable until you do become comfortable with them, and be a nice person. If you're a nice person, generally good things will happen to you.
I'm so grateful studying in CG Spectrum.
I can confirm that is the good school.
Bye everyone.
I wish you luck with your journey.
Okay, I am back. Where are we? Where are my slides? There we go. We heard from our alumni.
It's so nice to hear from them.
I know that is like my favorite video, just hearing from students who are just enjoying their time and like who got something out of the community. So next we have just a couple of notes about our partnership with Husson College in the US. So if you are someone in the United States, which I know there's a lot of you in here, listen up, you might be interested in this. And we have Sean to talk about that. Take it away, Sean.
Hey, thanks, Maxine. Appreciate it. Well, I know I introduced myself, or actually Maxine introduced me earlier as the head of compositing. I'm actually also, it's a dual role. I'm also the program director for our partnership between Husson College and powered by CG Spectrum. This is actually a really exciting opportunity because what this does is it opens up opportunities for students here in our US area to be able to, if they do qualify, to be able to reach out and take courses and the diplomas through Husson College, allowing them, if they qualify, for financial aid. They're also gaining access to the fact that these are programs that are officially accredited here in the United States. It's accredited by the Accrediting Commission of Career Schools and Colleges. It's a really exciting opportunity because you are going to be learning in exactly the same format that has been discussed throughout this entire presentation, but you are getting the added bonus and benefits of what was just mentioned. Additionally, you are going to be getting increased or extra class sessions per semester. We trend towards calling them semesters here in the US. So instead of 12-week sessions, you're going for 16-week sessions per session, per semester. So there's some exciting opportunities that come out of that, and a number of other added bonuses that we are more than happy to discuss. Just let us know if you are interested in that. I know, for example, some people might have mentioned 529 savings accounts. That is something that is very highly probable that you would be able to utilize through these programs. You just need to reach out, talk to our financial aid people, and go from there. Thank you so much, Maxine.
Thanks, Sean. So here was my special little gift I mentioned at the beginning of this open day, if you were here the whole time. So we have a nice little gift for you. If you enroll by August 25th of this year, you can receive a free CG Spectrum hat. If you remember, it was in the commercial. He put it on his head. So cool.
Right there.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah, that's the one.
Hat. That's the one that happened.
That's what the hat will look like. So there will be more details about this. So if you're interested and you're thinking already to enroll soon for our September intake, you just got to enroll by August 25th, and there will be more details in our follow-up email. So if you registered for this event, you will get it. No worries. One other thing that we've been doing lately is our chat program. So we have a chat ambassador program where you can, if you still have some more questions, if you're still unsure about CG Spectrum and what we can offer, and you just want to hear from some real people, here are some people you can talk to. So we have a bunch of our TAs and alumni students who are online, ready to chat. There's people in different countries, time zones. So you can log on cgspectrum.com/chat to talk to one of our representatives, our student ambassadors. If you want to learn more. It's a great little
resource just to give you a bit more insight into what you will be going into.
Yeah. It's just nice to hear from like real people, you know?
Totally.
And oh my God, speaking of real people, we have a lot of them here at CG Spectrum, and there's David. So I just had to plug my podcast, cgspectrum.com/podcast. It's a very new thing that I started along with my co-host, not this co-host, another one, Justin Molman, who you can see in the photo there. But we interview people like David. David was one of my podcast episodes, and he talked about his career.
We had a fun time. Yeah,
we did, and that's what led you to become a mentor with us.
Yes, it was.
We recorded that like before you became a mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my podcast is basically a careers focused podcast. So basically it's an interview podcast. So we interview different people who work in the industry. Sean was also on the podcast recently. We interviewed him, or Justin, my colleague, did, and we just talked to them about their life, how they got into this, you know, just that bigger picture. I know a lot of people in the chat here today have really been enjoying those personal stories from our mentors and our TAs. And so if you're interested in that, you're really going to like the podcast, because it just takes a deeper dive into who people are and how people get into this industry, because sometimes it feels so much bigger than us, the industry and film and games, and there's so many companies, but at the end of the day, we're all human, and it helps so much to give you that context to hear about other human experiences and how they did it, because little tip, not everyone's path is the same. And so hearing what David did versus what Brittany, this is this person here, another person I interviewed, versus what Eric Wilkerson did. And everyone here today, we all had a different path to get these jobs. Yeah. So yeah.
We love a good origin story as well.
I love an origin story. So that's like why I basically started this podcast. And that's it. We're done. Wow. But we still have a Q&A coming up, but if you want any more resources, we have some free resources on our website. If you go to cgspectrum.com, you can also check out old webinars that we've hosted in the past. You can catch us on YouTube, where we share the video version of our podcast. The podcast is also on other podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Music. I think it's everywhere. We're everywhere. But you can also catch us on all of these different social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or just regular old email. If you want to reach out to us and you have some more questions after today, you can contact us at hello@cgspectrum.com, and we will pass you along to the right people. But if you are ready to apply, you can always just email us at admissions@cgspectrum.com. And if you want to keep chatting, head on to the chat, cgspectrum.com/chat, to talk to our student ambassadors.
All the time has come. In the chat below. Yes. The time has come for Q&A.
The time has come for you to lip sync for your life. Let's get everyone to turn their cameras on. All of our guests here today, we got a big crew. I'm going to stop sharing so you can actually see all of us together. Oh my God. We got everyone here, and we got a bunch of questions. So before we get started, I just wanted to say that if you asked a question already in the Q&A section, there's a good chance that it has been answered. We have answered over 40 questions by typing this whole time. So if we don't answer your question live here right now, there's a good chance it was answered. So peep on in that Q&A section and go to the answered area, and maybe you'll see your question was already answered. But let's get started. So we have a couple of questions that I've been saving here, and we'll start with Tina's question. How many classes on average does it take a student with no experience to create a job-worthy portfolio? I'm going to answer like my version, but I'm happy to hear other people's perspectives. Obviously, it depends on the course or the field that you're in. Some people do it faster. It really depends on how much time you have. It's not necessarily the amount of courses you take or the number of classes you take, but it's the time and dedication you put into it. So someone who takes our advanced courses typically does have a higher chance of creating a job-worthy portfolio, but that's usually because they've put in the extra time, right? So it really depends on how much time you're putting in and the effort. It's not really about the number of classes, because I don't know if you remember what it was like going to regular school, but there are some people who showed up to class every day and still failed a test, right? So it's not really about the classes you attend, or even like graduating from something. If you get a diploma but you don't have a good portfolio, then you're still not going to get that job. So it's not really about the quantity there. It's more about the effort that you put in, Tina. But great question. Another question that we have here, I'm just gonna like rapid fire off some ones that I answer a lot to our students. Another one from Lewis: how many hours a week do you need to dedicate to the courses for doing it alongside full-time work? And so I wanted to save this. Lewis, I feel like since you asked this question, like over an hour has passed and you've heard from some mentors and TAs who also have full-time jobs aside from this. We typically recommend about, or at least 20 hours per week. That is our kind of standard. The foundations courses are actually a little bit higher. I believe they're 30 or 40 per week, because you're kind of getting like 2 courses in one with the foundations courses. But really, at the end of the day, everyone has their own personal situation. So some of you I saw in the chat have kids, some of you have full-time jobs, some of you don't. And so everyone has different responsibilities in their life, and not everyone can dedicate 20 hours. That's okay. You know what? It is what it is. But you're going to find the time that you have in your life. And as long as you're really putting in the effort to maximize that time and use it efficiently, then you'll do a good job in the course. Plus, a lot of students, they end up spending time after they graduate or during their breaks. Some courses have breaks in between terms, and you can use those breaks to kind of catch up with stuff. So yeah, we recommend about 20 hours, but is it possible to do less? Sure. Is it possible to do more? Hell yeah. And I hope you do, because you'll do even better and hopefully get a job faster if you do. But it all depends. We work with people and we're pretty flexible with that stuff. All right, we have another quick question here from Aaron. If you pay for a one-on-one class with a mentor, are you also allowed to work with a group if you want? Or does it count as a separate class entirely? So yes, if you pay for a one-on-one mentor, you still have access to our whole Slack community. So we have people who are taking one-on-one classes who then meet friends or meet other people in different fields, and then they decide to do their own group project together. We do not supervise these group projects. We offer guidance, but we don't mandate that people have to do group projects, just because it's difficult with all the different time zones and stuff like that. But yeah, you are not barred from the community if you pick a one-on-one mentorship, so don't worry. All right, what else do we have here? We have I have something for some of the game development mentors here. We have a question from Lewis. With the other game development courses, do they go into CI/CD techniques? For example, how to build, test, and version control? Anyone know anything about this? Troy?
We really just touch on it. We don't really get it. We do talk about testing, and we do a tiny bit on like version control and doing some of that kind of stuff, but it's hard because everybody does it different. And it's also kind of a more advanced topic, and the game design course is already pretty crash course. So we do get into some like how to use source control, how does testing, QA, all that stuff sort of work, but we don't take to that next level of like using really authentic standards or getting too into it. So you learn basic concepts, but not super details. But again, even as a game designer, I don't think I've never even known that term or used that term. So it's not an area that we get into really in game design. It's like the QA testers might have that language or might have that way of working, but it's not something that's important as a game designer. It's really the theory of testing is important.
Thank you so much, Troy. We have some questions from YouTube because we're streaming live to YouTube. Hello, YouTube people. We have a question from Solomon, who is asking, what is the best course stream to learn how to create an original AAA indie computer game that isn't a first-person shooter by one individual? AAA and indie. I don't know if that's like kind of an oxymoron, but
yeah, not quite sure how to answer that.
What's the best course stream to learn how to create like your own indie game, I guess, by like one person? This one Solomon wants to just create his own game.
Yeah, so I mean, in short, it's the game design course is really designed to teach you how to do AAA games, do something really big, but those skill sets can filter down to work on an indie thing. What you're really going to be missing is if anything, the engineering side of it. So there's not a single course or single thing that's going to teach you how to design, how to do art, how to do engineering. They're really 3 different disciplines. And so you can come take 3 different courses from us and then ultimately learn kind of how to create, if you want to do it fully by yourself, how to create your own thing. But there's not going to be a single course that's going to just say like, here's how you can make a game by yourself, right? And so I would say that being in the game design course will help a lot and probably be the closest to what you want. But the game engineering, game programming course, if you have that aptitude, would definitely be a close second. And marrying those 2 together can be very helpful as well, because then you have the more technical skill and the game design skills together. And then art can be acquired from other outside sources, more easily, and can be bought, and brought in. So you don't necessarily have to know how to build art if you're willing to work with, assets from the asset libraries and things like that. So that can be sometimes the best approach if you're trying to do something by yourself.
And I will say every discipline can make a game. You just need to design the game towards what it is you have as strengths, right? So if you have a great art background and you can do all that kind of stuff,
but you can't do a lot of scripting or design, you can follow some tutorials to get around that part to really showcase what you wanted, right? A game about like flow, for example, not a lot of in-depth, crazy game mechanics. It's not AAA level, but you can still showcase what you want to a game. So, and it doesn't matter what discipline you have, you can still create a small indie game if you design it right around your strengths, right? Use the right tools, use the right engines. And again, that comes down to experience. And that's sort of what we teach in all the disciplines, so that you can get away with doing something like that for your first step, right? If that's what you're looking to do.
Yeah, very true.
Awesome.
There's a lot of game ideas and game things that can be tempered towards what your skill sets and interests are. Yeah, it's a great point of, even if you were a great artist and you want to do all the art yourself, you could build all the art and just have a very, very simple point and click game that just you walk through and see everything, and make the game mechanics very simple. So it's hard to answer that question then exactly, but really depends on what you want to build. But look into the game art and game programming courses. And if you're not sure what the difference is, go on YouTube. My channel on YouTube on the CG Spectrum stuff. If you look in game design, I have a couple talks on exactly this topic that tell you kind of what is a game designer, what's a game programmer, and try to help you sort that out if you're not familiar with what the differences are.
Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, another option is if you're just not sure about which of those things you might even be good at, you can always start with the foundations of game art course. Or if you know that you're more on like the artistic side, you could try that route and then maybe do game design or programming after. So that's something that some students do. Not everyone, is able to, but some students take multiple courses. So I actually know of like a couple of students who are in game design who are also taking concept art, for example, or they're programmers who are also interested in something else. So you can also mix and match if you have the time. It's all about time at the end of the day. All right, next question here. Let's see what we have. I
like the question from Regan.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Which is, will it hurt not to have a college degree in this field? Which I think is a great question, because I think you will get two completely different answers depending on someone, how much experience they have. Yeah. And I think a lot of the time people will say it does not matter. You're not sitting the bar exam, you're not becoming a lawyer. You're a lot of the time it's based off your portfolio, isn't it? So that's at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. It doesn't matter if you've went to a university, or you've went to an online school, or you've learned off YouTube. It really matters at the end of the day what portfolio you have. And if I think CG Spectrum is the best way to get that portfolio for whatever job you're looking for, whether it be in art or programming, you can streamline your portfolio to get the job you want. So I don't think it matters to have a college degree at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things though that I would never tell someone not to go to school either. Yeah. And because we have a lot of students who went to previous schools before this and they come to us after, or we also have a lot of students who take one of our courses first before going into a bachelor's or a master's program, because that's still what they want to do. And this maybe helps give them some of those skills or real world advice so that they can kind of like take that advice and use it within their university course. So it kind of works both ways. Sometimes we get people who already graduated university and they come to us for more vocational help. And sometimes we're giving people those vocational, that mindset before they start university, and then they're more successful in university because they're already thinking about jobs, So I think they're all great, but at the end of the day, it's not about getting that like certificate. It's how you use that knowledge and how you use that time at the school. Like when I was in school younger, I didn't maybe use my time as well as I could have, because I was just focused on like graduating, and that's my fault. It's not necessarily the school's fault. So it really is about how you use that time. Brian, take it away, because I know you got an opinion about this too. Saw your hand up.
Absolutely. Everything you said is correct. And what I'll say is, if you're in this industry, the learning never stops. So it's not about getting one degree. It's not about getting one diploma. It's not about having one experience and one tool. It's forever changing. You are going to be on the forefront of technology and education and driving it forward in game development, right? Like we are constantly building upon the shoulders of others below us, going and pushing it to the next extreme on the next piece of hardware or console that's not even going to be out for 3 years, or using Unreal Engine 5 to ship a short film, which I did 8 months ago. And I mean, it wasn't even out yet. So you're always going to need to be learning. Really, the most important part is to learn how you best learn and what the steps are for you to acquire a new skill set, a new talent, a new piece of software, whatever. Really, that's what your time should be focused on doing, regardless of what you're doing, right? And pull in every source you can. Doesn't matter what it is, YouTube and traditional academia, programs, your best friend showing you how to do something. It's all important. It's all valuable for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not here to say that like you should never do any other learning. Like go for it. But it's about how you use it at the end of the day, and like how you apply it to a portfolio to like showcase, this is proof that I know this skill. So next up, we have a question from YouTube from Javon. What are the skills needed for a 3D game artist, specifically an Unreal Engine environment artist? So William, this might be for you, to transition to a job in virtual production. So there's someone who's already a 3D game artist, they're trying to get into virtual production. Do you have any tips on some things that are recommended to learn?
For the most part, it's kind of a nice transition because you take all the fun aspects of being a game artist and you kind of just never need to worry about collision boxes anymore. You don't really need to worry quite as much about polygon limits and like texture resolutions anymore. You just kind of throw as much detail at it until you hit your frame rate cap, basically. So in virtual production, usually you're working with either at least 50 frames per second, at least. I mean, I've worked on one project that was a minimum of 25 FPS. So when you're using like an A6000 or a 3090 or something, 25 FPS is gives you a lot of buffer to really just throw a crap load of detail into your scene. So it's really fun. So transitioning from games into that is kind of seamless because game artists tend to be very optimized. Like they're used to working with modular assets, very optimized models, and now you can just kind of keep that same workflow, but just keep throwing more detail at it. So it's a lot of fun. Apart from that, I would say it's really important to have a good eye for detail. And just know, because I know that like myself included, like when I went from games into film, like what really shocked me was just the level, how far people in film push their detail. Like when I saw it, I was like, all right, this is good enough. Then my VFX supervisor was like, yeah, no, that's like, you just got started. That's the blockout. You need to push that detail level like up 300%. I'm like, okay. So you just kind of need to like pay attention to like that, just a notch higher than you probably normally would in games. So that's probably my advice for them.
Thanks, William.
I think we have another question. Oh,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we have another question for William.
Okay.
From Larry. Larry asks, for the virtual production courses, are you covering working with LED volumes or solely in-engine techniques?
For the most part, in-engine techniques. So because of the LED volume, it's the Wild West right now, and like there's so many variables. Like nothing is really standardized in virtual production yet. Like there's so many different LED volumes you can get, which have their own pros and cons and budgets and prices. And some work better with some cameras, and you get like some more array with some other cameras. So there's too many unpredictable elements to that. So that's why we focus more on the parts that we can control and the things that don't change, the things that are not going to change and be obsolete in a year, for example. Because let's say you go with a brand of LEDs. For now, like in next year, maybe like that manufacturer doesn't exist anymore. So you never know. So that's what we focus on.
Thank you so much, William. All right, let me look through here.
Hey, Maxine, can I jump back to the degree question for a quick sec?
Of course.
I know it's a fighting topic, and I do just want to throw it on a different angle. I mean, I shared like my background and getting higher education and a master's degree. And while it is great, my recommendation to people is consider what your future desires would be. If you are purely focused on being industry side and that is everything you want to be, I can tell you what everyone already said is true. My entire 21 plus years in the industry, not once has a studio asked me for verification of educational credentials. Never. The question is, what's your portfolio? What's your work experience? Let's talk about that. That's the focus. But on the other side, If you want a higher education degree, as someone who came from that world, who grew up in it, and college was expected, that was the thing, you know, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's totally respectable. But you need to ask yourself, what are you going to do with it? What is your final penultimate plan? I mean, I know nobody can predict the future, so you might change your mind years later. But for me, one of the things, I got the master's degree because I had said early on, I could see myself teaching someday, but I knew working in the industry was the only way to get that PhD of what we do. So going to the industry is your best schooling. It's not about what's on the paper. It's about you learning from literally the best people in the industry. And that's in the studio, not in a school. All right, my 2 cents.
Yeah.
That's Thank
great.
you, Sean. Okay, let's see here. So we have someone asking, just another quick question on this degree topic. William, did you have a degree in the area of study before getting the position in Norway?
I did not have a degree, no. So I started my career right after high school. And yeah, so I think what matters more was I was able to get a skilled worker visa in Norway. And you can get that by having enough relevant work experience. So
there you go. There you go. All right. Another question here. Let's see. Lewis is asking, are there many jobs for game designers? Quite a few job postings for game developers seem to say require strong C++ knowledge. So what are the recommendations there?
Yeah, so the game designer job is very broad. You know, there's a lot of subspecialties. So you'll see that some companies online, unfortunately, just use a generic game designer job title, and that might be a little bit more of a jack of all trades, or somebody they might expect to have C, C++ or something. So they're doing some game programming really more than game design. Some might also have level design or other things. So you really have to kind of look and see what the company's wanting. But as far as game design jobs, in general, especially level design jobs are in huge demand right now. I've never seen so many open job positions, especially as we've moved into this virtual world now that COVID kind of brought to us, where we can now work anywhere in the world. It's allowed a lot of people to quit, you know, in order to go to and work for a new studio that they really wanted to, because they might have been physically located in one place and didn't want to relocate to another. So there's been a huge upheaval the last couple of years in the job market, and that's actually a good opportunity. There's lots of new things there, and it also means you might live in a strange place that you don't want to move from, that doesn't have a local studio that you can also go work for in games. But in general, as far as the job skill sets, I would say most jobs tend to be more entry level in the game level design side, going in and building levels. Is knowing C++ and C language stuff there great? It helps. It's not needed. So you really have to kind of just look into what does the studio really want. But the vast majority of game design jobs, I would say 95% or more, do not require actual programming. What you might look though into is in the Unreal Engine, you can use blueprints. And blueprints is what we call scripting. And it's really a visual scripting language. So there's a difference between scripting and programming, right? And one's much more, let's say, easier version, right? The scripting is a lot easier to do. So while you may not need to know C++, knowing blueprints and Unreal Engine can help you a lot to get a job. So hopefully that understanding kind of helps you a little bit to see what the difference is there.
The other quick point to that question is our industry grows so fast and we have so many new jobs of all kinds of specialties pop in that developer has a weird end design, as he said, many different branches of design. Developer has a real different connotation depending on the country. It usually means programmer in a lot of places. Like you are the guy that can write the code to make the engine do the things, do whatever. So I've seen that. And then in some other countries, it does mean design. Somebody that is thinking about the game, deciding how it works, how it builds. So you may just be in a country that has all developer role literally means programmer, and they're not going to use programmer or software engineer. A lot of people don't like putting software engineer because that in a lot of countries means a very specific accreditation that can tie you to a legal ramification if you mess up, right? So you won't see software engineer in certain countries as well. So there is that thing to be aware of. The terms are very nebulous and not nailed down in our industry. So really look at the job posting, specifically what it is about, not the name that's at the top of it. And that'll help.
Yeah. And one of the things that we also like help you with, especially if you are in one of the advanced courses and get that access to the career and portfolio term, is there's content in there that teaches you how to actually research jobs and like find job descriptions and like start looking at this stuff before you graduate, not just when you're ready to actually start working, but start looking into even now, like the people who haven't even started at CG Spectrum, start reading the job descriptions and start writing down some of the common things that you see, because those are going to be great questions for your mentor when you start. You can be like, well, what is this? Or even if you went through a whole term and you don't really see some of those things, in the course content, you could maybe ask one of the TAs or ask someone in the community something like, well, hey, how do I, like, what's up with motion capture data? How can I use that for my animation? Or how can I approach something differently that maybe isn't in the course? Because realistically, we can't teach everything. There's so much out there to learn. And some of it does require you to kind of go above and beyond and like be curious about different topics. So start looking into this stuff now. We have one question from Lolly here, who's asking, do you think you would be able to get into a junior role after doing the Intro to Nuke course, or would you need to do further courses in order to get into the industry? Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, so regarding that, Lolly, I would recommend you consider continuing and taking the entire compositing course. That Intro to Compositing course is the bedrock. It's going to teach you how to navigate Nuke and the basics, but it will not prepare you for a full-time career. It would actually, to a certain extent, it would potentially be detrimental because first impressions are key in our industry. If you're starting out, you want to put your best foot forward. And also, you wouldn't have a proper portfolio that presents your skill set if you just took that singular 3-month course. Everything that builds into that course, and this is true for all of our programs, you start out, you lay the bedrock, you build up to it, you adapt, you create additional skills, and you're also problem solving and learning how to take everything you've learned and apply it to new and different scenarios. By the time you're in that final term, that's when you're building out your portfolio. Your portfolio is your resume, it's your calling card, and that's the thing that's the first impressions that we're talking about. Even what Maxine and everybody was just talking about just leading up to this, we teach you how to go after the job acquisition in that final term. That's when you're preparing the portfolio, the resume, all the aspects of how do I go out for the job search. If you do that after the intro course, what can potentially put things in jeopardy, bluntly stated, is the fact that in our industry, we're working with pros, and the pros know what's good and they also know what's bad. And that first impression is absolutely key when you're starting out, because they're going to see that and they're going to say, is this a person I want to hire, or is this a person that still has a lot to learn before they're at a level where they can effectively compete for a job? Your learning doesn't stop when you leave the school. Your learning continues throughout your entire career, but you need to get to a point where you have enough skills to be able to present yourself in a unique and exciting way that illustrates the desire for the employer to want to hire you. So that's why the recommendation would be take it from the beginning all the way through to the end. And then you are more than ready to be able to go after what it is you want in your career.
Very, very good points. Thank you so much, Sean. And I know some of you watching may have noticed that some people have like dropped out of our little gallery. That's because our mentors and department heads, some of them have Q&A sessions to go to with students right now, or they have to go back to their job because they work full time. So we have, before we go to another question, I just wanted to mention one of our comments that we got. We got this beautiful comment in the chat here on Zoom from Molly Gilbert, who said, "This has been so much fun. I haven't felt this excited and inspired by an open day in some time. I'm highly considering making the career leap." And we hope you do, Molly. You can hear, I mean, so many of our mentors made a career change. A lot of our students are in the same boat. So I'm really happy that people are enjoying this. We have about enough time for, I want to say 2 questions, maybe 3. We don't have a lot of time left, but David, you got a question? Okay.
Yes,
for us?
We've got a question from Matthew. I don't know who can answer this, but he says, "I'm a recent graduate in a degree that is not similar to the games industry. Is it recommended to find industry experience while studying here at CG Spectrum?"
I think I can answer that one.
I think that is best for you. Yeah, that's right up your street.
As the career development manager. So yeah, this is quite common. I talk to a lot of students who are in the same boat as you, Matthew, who have a different degree. Listen, if you have time to dedicate to a job and learn, like, and especially if you like need the extra cash, which a lot of people do, I do recommend it. You don't have to get like an artistic or a technical job. Like, let's say you want to be a game designer. Maybe you don't try to get a game designer job right away because you're studying that, but you could consider maybe a QA role. So maybe being like a QA tester, or sorry, a game tester, quality assurance, that's what QA stands for. Or I know in the visual effects side of things, a lot of people start as being a production assistant or a production coordinator. There are so many different types of jobs that you can do at a studio that really help you learn more about what it's like to work in the industry. Myself, for example, my very first job was working as an office manager. So totally not glamorous, not what I went to school for at all. I was picking up phones, I was talking to clients, I was doing some scheduling, expense reports, but I got to see how a studio operated. And to me, that was invaluable. So it wasn't really about the fact that I was picking up phones. It was the fact that I was the first person or first point of contact for a lot of people contacting the studio. So I got to talk to clients first. A lot of people got to know me for that reason. So my network grew by a lot because I was in that position. So it's, if you have the time, I highly recommend it. And it'll help to jumpstart your career when you do graduate. It'll be maybe a little bit easier because you'll have some relevant industry experience. That being said, it's not necessary. So is it recommended? Sure. A lot of people are not able to do that. Maybe they have to stick with their current job just to keep the income flowing while they study, or they want to put all of their time into their studies to really like maximize their time. And so you could do that route after. You could, depending on how good your portfolio is, you could go straight into the type of job that you want, your dream job. I've seen it happen. Or you could go into something more entry level, something not directly related to the field that you're interested in, just to get some of those little bits of experience first. But yeah, that sounds like you're thinking in the right direction, Matthew. Okay, another question here.
I think we've got one for Troy. Maybe is this the best one?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Ube Duala. What game design course is recommended if I have previous industry experience in level design? Should I go for intro or advanced course? Which one works for me?
It's hard to say without seeing what somebody's portfolio really is. And you can send us your portfolio, talk to the admissions team. They'll forward you on to me and I can take a look, and then we can kind of evaluate and see what your standards are. The problem is everybody's at different levels. And even in the professional world, even people that have worked for many years, we have a couple students that spent, say, 5 years in mobile game design, and they were working in mobile games, shipped a bunch of mobile games. They wanted to just switch their career into AAA PC console games. And they tried on their own. They couldn't do it. They didn't have the skill set. So even though it's game design, they still didn't quite have that skill set, and they actually came to us and now are studying with us to learn how to make PC console games there. So just because they had a level design background didn't even mean that they could qualify, because we're so specialized in what we do, right? So don't, be offended if you feel like you do qualify, because a lot of times people don't. And the main thing to know is that I'd say that probably 95% of the people that come in that want to skip, they come in with some great games that they've built. They've gone in the Unreal Engine or Unity, they've built something and they have something to show, but most of them have actually not done the design work. They didn't do the foundational work of like, how do I think through this? How do I write the design specifications, game design documents, things like that? And so they can say, like, I've been building games for 5 years. And I'm like, but you haven't been designing games. And there's a big difference between designing and building. And so I really emphasize that our intro courses and stuff are really about designing and learning that foundational stuff and the theory, and then learn the tools later, right? And that tools is a big difference. And so even a professional person that's been working and doing some stuff doesn't necessarily mean that you understand that fundamentals of what the game level designer really truly does, because only half the work, or maybe even 25% of the work, is working in Unreal. There's a lot of work that goes on, that you got to do before you start jumping in and just building the thing in Unreal. You got to really learn how to design on paper, because that's 10 times faster, 100 times faster than when you go into Unreal and you build something out and you got to revise and revise and revise, and it takes forever, right? So come talk to us, come talk to me. We'll be happy to evaluate things and see where the best place to go. But right now we do have just the main game design course and the intro course. I definitely don't like people to skip that intro course. It sounds easy, but again, it's about building that foundation. So, let's take a look and see where you're at.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's so many things that you learn in these intro courses that's best not to skip over. We have a question from Nate here on Zoom in the chat, and he's asking, as someone who is 28, has a kid and a full-time career already, what does hiring look like for me? Is it harder for someone who is a little older? And I'm going to stop right there because 28 is not old, but I get it. When you're in that age, you feel old. Is it harder for someone who's a little older to get hired? I've read, perhaps falsely, that it can be challenging to get hired as a little bit of an older entry level employee. I keep laughing at the older part because 28 is so young. Well, Chris, you're one of our alumni, and this is similar to your situation. I mean, I'm not sure I don't remember if you said you had kids or not, but this is your second career and you just got a job. So, I mean, maybe you could speak to that, but I guess the answer would be what does it look like? Yeah. What did it look like for you? Did you do anything different or
no, I honestly,
was it harder, you think, or no?
I don't think so. I honestly don't think age has anything to do with it. I think a lot of it has to do, I think we've talked about this already, but show your work, your portfolio, what you can do. I think that's what matters. Some of that stigma maybe comes from the fact that, looking at a junior position, if you have, say, 10 years or 15 years or however long in a career, and they go, well, you have 15 years experience, you have way too much experience. But generally, if you're switching careers or doing this for the first time, you are a junior. That previous experience may carry over, it may not. In my situation, it actually did help me a lot because when I applied for the position, although I am a junior Houdini artist, I've only taken the foundational introduction course. I've had a lot of experience programming, a lot of experience with Unreal, a lot of experience. So that really, I think, helped. So I'd say experience and age does not hinder you in getting a job in any way.
Yeah. And Sean's answering more questions here on the side. Yeah. I've worked with more. No, but it's true. I've talked to a lot of students across all of our courses who are older and younger, and I've seen a lot of the older ones get jobs. I think if you're watching that community video where we talked to some of our alumni, I think if you remember, one of them, he said he was almost 40, he was pushing 40 and got into animation. He's now successfully working, I believe at Jellyfish Pictures, I want to say, as an animator, specifically a character animator. So he even skipped that junior level and went straight into a more competitive field, which is character animation. So it's totally
Maxine,
possible.
You can actually, you could go even further. I've had students that were in their 50s and higher.
Yeah.
And it, to me, here's the thing, from both sides of the spectrum, when you're teaching, it's not about age, it's about the dedication to your craft and what you're going to put into it.
Mm-hmm.
For us in our industry, we don't look at how old you are, or in my case, how receding of a hairline you might have. But what we do look at is, are you capable and are you able to pull off what you need? And sometimes age actually is to your advantage, because that means you have life experience. You might not have worked in the industry, but we know that and you've gone through that quote unquote school of hard knocks, and we know that you're going to put into it what you want to get out of it, and you aren't going to waste time figuring it out. You're not here to try before you buy. You're here to do it. And I've seen, I've been on both ends. I've been in the studio where deciding who we're going to hire, and it wasn't about the age, it was about that portfolio and the skill set. And those people, if two people have the exact same portfolio and they have complete polar opposite ages, I want to know then who's more dedicated to what it is. Are they excited about what they want to put into this? Are they showing that they are going to do whatever it takes to succeed? We don't care. We don't care the rest of it. Doesn't matter.
And also, it's not a thing anymore to put your age or your date of birth on your resume. Some resume templates have that in there. remove it. Like, you don't need that. No one needs to know where you were born, how old you are. We don't even need your full street address anymore because no one's sending you mail. Just give us the
Name and
basics, the
email.
city, your name, email, city, just so we know like approximately where you are, and that's it. So I think we're done. You know what? We've gone over time. It's been really nice to meet everyone. But just a reminder, if we did not answer your question, because I know we got so many questions, we couldn't answer all of them. You can always email us questions. So you can email us at hello@cgspectrum.com. We would be happy to answer your questions. You can also comment, reach out to us, DM us on Instagram, comment on our YouTube videos. If you have a question about a specific YouTube video, we have hours and hours and hours of content online for you to check out. So if you're not quite ready yet, check out our YouTube channel, and we have some tips. We have some tutorials on there. We have interviews. There's my podcast. I'm going to plug the podcast again. Like and subscribe. I'm pretending I'm on YouTube. But yeah, so it was really nice to have everyone here. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you to all of our guests, the mentors, the TAs, the alumni, everyone who has joined us, the department heads. Thank you for joining us today. And remember, if you apply before August 25th, or enroll, before August 25th, you will get a free hat.
They don't even send them out to mentors. I don't even have one.
I don't even have one yet either, but I have a shirt. I have a shirt and I have like 2 mugs. So, there's that. But yeah, thank you all for joining. And I hope this was informative. Please reach out to us. And if you are looking for more info, cgspectrum.com has all of it for you. Thank you, David, for co-hosting with me.
Thank you, Maxine. It's
been
so
much fun. And I hope everyone has a lovely day wherever you are.